Hello and welcome 2022 OCR World Championships, Stratton, Vermont. Today we're going to crown two champions in the 15K. Let's kick it to our correspondent down on the field. Matt, what's the energy like over there in Stratton?
Yesterday's morning was cold, rainy, windy. This morning, just cold. So different vibe. And everybody's looking at that clock saying, okay, in a couple hours, by the time I race, it's going to be warm. So people are a little bit happier about that. The elites I haven't seen because I've been in here very excitedly getting us ready for this. But we're getting our rabbits in place. And I can't wait to crown a champion. Quick thoughts on yesterday from you guys. I wasn't there. I feel like Ida earned it. Of course she did. But wow, like Lindsay, we've never known her to make that kind of mistake, eh?
It's the way it was going to have to go down. Ida was going to have to be there until Lindsay opened the door. And the door was open for her, and she took advantage. Matt, what I want to know, I know you say you weren't there, but you got down by the finish line, right?
Yes.
What was the general mood around the finishers? Was Atkins despondent, or was he fired up for tomorrow? Like, I'm going to go lay it down. Was Rylan like, oh, this is tougher than I thought? Or was he like, man, I learned and I'm ready to go? What were people feeling like?
So the first thing VJ said to me was like, guys, Rylan's coming. That's the first thing VJ said. Atkins, if you watched him cross the finish, it wasn't a like, let me give it all to the end. It was like, I settled for third, right?
Mm-hmm.
There, I caught the embrace of apparently two teammates. I did not know that Ida and Chris. I mean, their embrace was like, I couldn't see two women happier to see each other and how they did. I thought it might have been a little bit of like, hey, we took the queen down. You guys disagreed with me on that. Not in a mean way. Not in a mean way.
Well, I think you have to celebrate a shocking win when it happens. And shocking maybe is the wrong term, but a spectacular win. But Ida also stayed with Chris, I believe, when they trained up at altitude in Colorado. I believe they spent like 2 weeks together.
Oh, okay.
Prior to slow. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe they've spent time training together. And Chris doesn't seem to dislike anyone. So I think they formed a bond pretty quickly.
I don't know. I don't know. That's what I just kind of felt like, hey, we did it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we did this. Like, maybe that was the thing is, hey, I hope one of us gets first. Hope one of us gets, we both want to be on the podium. But no, dude, it's an interesting weekend though. It's an interesting weekend though, because as soon as you cross the finish, you kind of know there's tomorrow. I mean, unless you're VJ, right? Or Rose, one of those people that didn't. For everybody else, it's kind of like, okay, day one done. Immediately, I got to go in to day two. So, but today feels like the put it on the line day because the team race is like fun day. So today is like, what did you train for? Why are you here?
And we ditched the time trial format today, so everyone's on the start line together. So it is more of a big race for the athletes to kind of get ready for, as opposed to the time trial format, which is probably welcome to many of the athletes today.
Right.
I would think so.
All right, gents.
I have one more question for you, Matthew.
Yes.
2 athletes not racing today.
Right.
That I'm curious about why. I get VJ. But
right.
Sean Roberts and Rose Wetzel. Did you talk to either of them? And is Rose potentially thinking she might have made a mistake, knowing that she's been prepping for Tahoe and Abu Dhabi for like 5 years, and now she's not doing the long course?
What she said to me was, I did the math, how sore my body was after the whole weekend last year, right, with more racing to go, versus put it all on the line, 3K and 100-meter. Plus, I miss kind of being a ninja. Like, all those factors added up. Sean, I actually had dinner with, but we didn't really talk business. So I don't want to speak out of turn there. But that's my takeaway from those things. And again, like, there's no wrong answer, right? Like, there's no wrong answer to who wants to do what. This is your race, right? You got to run your race. You got to run your year, right?
There's only hindsight. So 100-meter, has anything played out yet?
I mean, it's happening right over here. I haven't watched a lot of it. I heard a couple people like excited. I'm going to go back. Benny said, I'm going to do it one time, like crazy, take chances. And then another time to kind of like normal. And then a third time to set my time. Like, so they're taking it seriously, but I haven't watched a lot of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Deuces.
We're running on time. As far as we know,
8 a.m. start.
Why not?
Deuces.
See ya. All right, Bracken. So we're going to get into it today, talk about this race. Again, this broadcast is brought to you by VJ Shoes, best grip on earth. You'll see a lot of that out there, especially for the longer race today because of their superior cushioning as well. Bracken, on the men's side, the top of the race, the story doesn't change very much, just the names are a little bit different, where we have Ryan Atkins coming to challenge a returning champion in Ryan Kempson. And Ryan Kempson was really strong yesterday. Gave VJ, didn't give him a single inch, and they raced until the very finish. How do you see this race playing out? Do you think it is going to be as simple as Atkins trying to challenge the front, or what kind of group of guys do you think we'll see in that 15K?
It's hard for me to speculate on this one because Ryan Atkins is running into a younger Ryan Atkins today. I think that Rylan Shadig is Ryan Atkins, but younger. And by being younger, he's less experienced, and that means he has less restraint. We've already seen that he is happy to be aggressive. He learned on course yesterday. So I don't want to disrespect Matthew Kempson because Ryan Kempson. Matt Kempson will not be here racing. When's the last time we saw Matt Kempson?
haven't seen him on the course in a minute.
I lead off by saying I don't want to be disrespectful and I call him the wrong name. His brother will not be here. Ryan Kempson, this isn't disrespectful to him, but I don't think that he is the person who sets the tone on the race. He might well win the race, but it will be another performance like yesterday or last year where he's stalking, he closes and capitalizes. I don't think anyone's going to take Rylan out of the lead to start with. He seems to be the person that's going to go out and just let his engine run wild. And I think it's on the rest of the field to react to him. How seriously do we take Rylan early in the race, knowing that he had a hiccup yesterday, but he's learned, but there's still obstacles he hasn't seen, but he has a monster engine? That's the big question for me is like one person, Rylan. What does he do to this field?
If yesterday is any indicator about how he's going to approach this race, it seems like he was taken back about the speed in which VJ and Kempson took off. But the way he powered up that first climb, the way he attacked the carry, which we should see a double tube carry today, should give him a little bit more space to do work there. And it seemed like he was getting a little bit of time put him on the obstacles, which rightfully so. On a race today, things are going to slow down. He's going to have a little bit more time to understand how to get through these. He's seen about half of the obstacles from the 3K. There's 20 there. There's 40 today. So there's still some areas to be tripped up on. But a good sign for Rylan is that he completed them all because these are not gimme obstacles, and he was able to get through them.
Yeah, there are the trickier ones today. He's going to run out. Like, has he ever done Urban Sky or anything even close to that? Has he done many low rigs? There are 5 to 10 seconds per obstacle to be lost there if you get through cleanly. But on the other side, there's an extra 20 to 30 seconds of running in between many of these obstacles. So there is room to learn on the course. Yesterday, there was no room to learn. Right. It takes you from second to fourth because you're learning. Today, there's time for that. You can make it up.
And if any indication how he raced in Kelowna, where he did have a gap, that you could add up all that time between obstacles and he would still be fine being able to take his time and look at things and then methodically get through it. Who else do we see on the men's side? Some names that are going to be here that weren't there yesterday are Tyler Veerman, Logan Broadbent, Aaron Newell, who may all be a factor in the top 5 to 6 at any point throughout the race.
All three of those gentlemen will be on screen for at least a while. For some moment in time, all three will be on screen, and 2 of them are pretty spectacular on obstacles. Tyler Veerman doesn't show his athleticism on course a lot because we typically only see him in race styles that are a little bit more tame on the obstacles. But he has a literal circus background. Not like, oh, he's a circus guy or performer. Like, he's an actual circus performer in college. That's just not something I've run into very often in life.
I don't think he'll have a struggle to have the body awareness to get through any of these obstacles, and his strength, his pulling and grip strength is elite in this sport. So I would, because of the pace of this thing being slower, I would expect Tyler Veerman to be right in that mix on the early climbs and not being cautious because of the obstacles there. And same for Aaron Newell. Aaron Newell, who has been on this type of course format, is as confident as anybody on here. He's just going to see how his running up on a day like today.
Yeah, and then we get to add in some of the Europeans who maybe did or didn't hit their expectations yesterday. Yes, I had a very good race, but he's also used to winning. We'll see how he can translate that into the long course. We've got both the Martins should be set up for a strong showing. We saw last year that Igor podiumed on both days. He's not going to be here, but it just kind of sets the stage for the Europeans have a route to the podium here, and they do hit the more technical obstacles today.
We have 8 of the top 10 returning to this race, including, you mentioned Jesse De Heer and Jonas Drescher, who are international athletes, maybe with more technical obstacles that will help them stay in that mix. But again, I think they were taken back by the speed of things yesterday. The race just got away so quickly. So it'll be interesting to see when things slow down, if they do have the confidence, if they do have the fitness to stick their nose and climb with an Atkins and an Aaron and a Rylan.
Yeah, I've seen Jonas, I've seen Jessa, and unfortunately he's not here, but Thomas Buell. I've seen those gentlemen get out fast and run really aggressively in OCR courses before, but they've been flat. I don't know that I've watched an overseas race that is this climb-based for a short course and had it been taken out so aggressive. VJ has dialed this in, and he's on his, 4th OCR World Championship short course attempt. At this point, he knows exactly what his rev limiter is on these climbs, and he is keeping it pegged right there. Where these guys, this their first attempt at this course on a 3K, maybe second for some of them. And yeah, the aggression had to have been startling if you weren't sitting there for the last 4 months like VJ preparing for that level of aggression.
They basically ran into a buzzsaw the way that Kempson and VJ took that thing out. It was from the first set of walls, 4 walls, and there was already a gap going into the first 2 or 3 obstacles. So the race format's a little bit different today. There is not the time trial start, and the course is much different, where we're going to get a bigger climb to start, and we're going to kick things way out west and get a whole bunch more different obstacles there. We're going to be having different rabbits at different parts of the course, so we are going to get you as much of this race as possible. I think we're going to be able to just about everything we want to see, barring any type of technical difficulty. So another name that I think we should just shout out is Samuel Hebert, who came out of the slower heat, the second heat in the 3K, and ended up 8th. So he's back today. He could also play a factor in things. Bracken, on the women's side, the story, again, it's similar to yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's Lindsay Webster and against the field. Yesterday, the field won. How do you think Lindsay will bounce back from this?
I think very well. We talked last year how when she was being pushed by a couple women up early in the race, I think Rose was up there, and I don't remember who the third female in that breakaway pack was, but that she's just so calm. She's been here so many times. She's seen it all, done it all, and she's taken her lumps. Lindsay hasn't had an unperturbed ride to the top. She had struggles in Tahoe with cramping. She has been beaten in the 3K and the 15K before. So it's not like this is her first taste of a loss. And then, oh my goodness, what do I even do? I'm not indestructible. She knows she's not indestructible. She just knows she's more resilient and is a higher level performer than almost anyone else. And so this is nothing new to her.
And Ida Matilda Steensgaard ran just about a perfect race. We talked about it earlier in the broadcast yesterday about what someone would have to do. And Ida was aggressive, and she just waited and bided her time until there was a place where she could make a move. Just did what she could on the obstacles and just methodically moved through when Lindsay made that mistake and hammered it home. So amazing race on her end. So taking nothing away from her, she was in that spot, in that position to be a world champion. So we will see what she will be able to do on a 15K like this today. The distance is much longer. There is no slight to Ida's fitness. I think she will be able to handle it just well. But how aggressive Lindsay will be up front and what she could do to this field almost immediately if she chose to, she really dictates things as the things play out.
She does, and she's in the driver's seat in terms of if something goes wrong like yesterday. She didn't have any time to get back into the front. Today, if something goes wrong and she has a hiccup and restarts, well, now she's got a second climb and then a third climb. You're going to need multiple Lindsay mistakes, and you're going to have to run clean the entire time in order to get her today. Like, one mistake isn't going to cut it. 1.5 mistakes, like we saw yesterday, is not going to be nearly enough because she erases that on the next 7-minute climb.
We've seen her do this in Spartan Race where she might have some sort of hiccup or have some sort of massive lead and losing some time there and still having enough space on the course that it really doesn't matter. Someone who could challenge this, similar to Rylan on the men's side, is Annie Doobie, who was really aggressive yesterday. Ran into a couple hiccups, as we would expect for a new timer in this event, where she wasn't sure how to get through things, lost a bunch of time, ended up in fourth, much like Rylan. So her fitness is probably the next closest there. So it'll be interesting to see how she is assertive early. We've seen her come out and throw some punches at Lindsay in these races. How do you think Annie's going to approach this today?
I think she's Rylan. I think you're exactly right. I think those two are the same, that they are new to it. They come in with massive engines. They're obstacly proficient, and they're going to learn on the fly. But yesterday has to be that, all right, that's as bad as it's going to get. I saw it. I passed it all. I stumbled a little bit just in terms of time on a few of these things, but nothing really tripped me up and made me restart. So I'm going to be just fine today. And now with the long course, just like Lindsay, I have the freedom to go try some things, and I'm going to make it back up.
Crystal Glasky's one to watch, of course. The course gets longer. She ran a pretty smart race. It seemed like she got out hard yesterday, conserved energy on the climb, and bombed that downhill to be right where she needed to be and take advantage of those technical obstacles that she really does excel at. Today we're going to get more longer, grindier work, some more technical obstacles. I think this bodes well for Chris as well.
I think you're going to see that pack of three. Ida, Chris, Annie, swapping positions, moving back and forth, playing to their strengths and their weaknesses throughout the course today. And I think it gets decided late, the second and third podium spots.
Other names to consider here is Sarah Rue Beckstrom, who finished in fifth yesterday, and Ulrike Evanson, who had a bit of a drop off yesterday. We expected to see her a little bit higher up. I think she's more of a distance athlete, so we'd expect her to be aggressive and be around it from the European contingent. Brecken, let's drop off screen, talk about what's going on here. One thing on this start line that you'll notice that you might not notice as much in a Spartan race is we're seeing a lot of long sleeves. We're seeing some arm warmers, and this is because there's no necessarily water on this course. It's a lot of grip, a lot of intensity there, but they're not going to get you wet. So do you think that plays into what people are wearing for this race?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have to prioritize your grip strength, you need your forearms and hands warm. And if there's no water on course, there's no need to race topless. Like you see, that's the classic image of OCR, is a bunch of people shirtless at the start line. Well, the only reason anyone does that is because once you get soaked or muddy, that just clings to you the rest of the time. And in the cold, that's nasty. So yeah, if you don't have mud, you don't have water, most of us don't really prefer to race shirtless.
Well, you could speak for yourself on that one.
Would you be out there topless today?
If there's photographers out there, there's going to be people without shirts out there. Believe it.
That's true.
So we see a good line. We see Logan Broadbent here in the green, right in the middle, who wasn't in the race yesterday. Green hat as well. That'll be perfect for us to kind of point out. I think it's Ethan Brown in the gray here, a younger U.S.-based athlete. Tyler Veerman right to his left in a black T-shirt and black shorts. You see Ryan Atkins wearing a blue jacket all the way to the right of your screen. Looks cold. It cold out there.
Atkins looked like he had a light gray tank top underneath. Kempson will be in that yellow tank. Rylan is just to Atkins' left. He's going to have that bluish USA top on. He's going to have a big white USA on there. We'll try to keep you guys, I know this gets pixelated and choppy a little bit as we go, so we'll try to keep you abreast of who is wearing what color so you can at least keep up with the visual of where people are stacking up.
We're going to go dual screen here. Matt is going to catch the very beginning. Looks like we're getting ready to start. Everybody's kind of backing up and clearing out of the way. Josh Reed will be taking us up that first kilometer or so to see how this early race kind of shakes out. So we'll see how aggressive they are. Do you see Atkins being assertive right from the jump? If not, maybe an Aaron or an Tyler, who are fresh, could play into a bigger factor in this very beginning of the race.
Yeah, as much as I don't love time trial format when you send it out in waves, it is even more stressful and imperative to get out well in a mass start. Because as you can see here, it's not a very wide start line. The first charge up this climb is not super wide. You're looking at like maybe 20, 25 feet wide at its widest right up here. So the bottlenecks will happen, and that is a kind of a slippery slope for people where not everyone wants to sprint up that first hill. But if you don't give it a good 20 to 30 seconds of revving the engine up front, you're going to be stuck 2 or 3 waves deep behind people, even just waiting to go over a wall. And that's very demoralizing. Then you get to the top and you're approaching obstacles as the leaders are already ringing the bell and running off. And it just sets off those panic alarms all over the inside of your brain. And now you're trying to over rev to catch back up. And it sets a bad tone for the race. So I actually think you're going to see people be hyper aggressive from the start before settling in.
It's one of those traps in obstacle racing, especially on a course that's set into the mountains, that people do start hard going up, and it feels good in the moment, but it's tough to get back. And in a course like this, it's not necessarily like a Spartan race where things kind of grind to a halt and you're just where your position is at a certain point in the race is kind of where it finishes. With all these nasty obstacles in several different portions of this course, things could shake up if you get in over your head. But this is a championship event. That's kind of what we're here for. I think people aren't here to play it safe, which is not what we want anyway from this kind of coverage. And yeah, we're still waiting on them to get things rolling.
And this is the worst part right here.
Yeah.
Every single one of these people just wants to be released, and all of us, we just want to watch it. And finally, it looks like it's about to happen here.
And they are off.
Yeah, Atkins is... Oh, Ryland went right around him. Atkins got out to the front, and Ryland surged immediately around to the front of this race.
So it is kind of how it's playing out right as we started. We figured Ryland's going to want to get his engine revved up and going. Look, the athlete on the left, that might be... Yes, he was wearing orange yesterday, but it's hard to tell in the long sleeves now. Tyler Veerman is now being aggressive from the start. So two of the athletes who we had mentioned who might want to be aggressive, looking to play out that way, getting up over these walls.
Yeah, Tyler will be in black short sleeve Adidas t-shirt with his black shorts on top of his greenish and black VJs. Ryland, for a lot of you may not be familiar with Ryland. He's in his blue and white two-toned USA top, red shoes on the bottom, and he'll have KT tape up and down his knees right now. And trailing behind is yesterday's runner-up, Ryan Kempson, in that mustard-colored singlet.
So we're going to climb a bit longer in the initial portion of this course today. We got the walls, and then it's just several walls to start until we kind of get to, and then we're going to kick out west. We're going to see some of the more classic obstacles from Skull Valley and a one called Snake Pit. So we're going to get technical ones there. And it looks like Logan Broadbent's also asserting himself in this top three. So again, some of the fresher athletes, they know they have that advantage of having the fresh legs. So it looks like they're using them to start.
How much does having fresh legs play into today, in your opinion?
In OCR, in general, the freshness in your legs, I feel for such a small amount of time that it turns into grit and determination and your wherewithal and overall engine pretty quick. So I don't necessarily think it is going to play a factor into an athlete like Ryland or Atkins or Kempson that much. What are your thoughts?
I think you're seeing right here where it matters. Watch how, do you see how fast Veerman was down that? He doesn't just have great hands on obstacles. He has really good feet, and that does matter. He has quick... His feet are quick and they have great proprioception. That's not an easy dismount down the backside. But I think this is where it matters. The first climb. The first climb, when you raced yesterday, no matter how good your warm-up was this morning, you've got your legs balking a little bit at what they're being asked to do. And these guys, Tyler Veerman, Logan behind, their legs are just ready to rip it up right from the start. By the time we're done with the first ascent, I think everyone's back to square one.
And Tyler Veerman was preparing for a 24-hour race for the Spartan Ultra and also World's Toughest. That was postponed over this weekend. So this was kind of a last-second call for him to come to this race. Mm-hmm. So we know he has a lot of volume underneath his legs, and he's also tapered down, ready to perform. So I think you can see here Ryland moving to a power hike, and Tyler continues to drive up that hill on a run.
Yeah, and I love it, actually. I said it yesterday about Ryland. I love when people go to the power hike early. It used to drive me crazy. I used to not be able to do it very well. But then you start to realize he's playing the long game. He is managing his effort the best that he possibly can. Instead of looking, where can I possibly run and pull away? Early on, you're thinking, where can I possibly hike and conserve?
So the pace seems aggressive, even in a couple minutes into this race. We're about 2.5 minutes into this race. Things are strung out already, and Logan is hanging there. I believe that is Logan who's hanging there and is not willing to let this fast pace break open this race this early. So a strong contingent up front, but Tyler Veerman is being very, very aggressive. I like this move out of him just to stretch this field, give him some time when he comes up to those obstacles just to think them out. And Rylan also would be happy to have that extra time coming up to things like a Skull Valley.
Yeah, this little lead here is much more important for them than it would be for someone else. And Logan did this last year as well. Logan was fairly aggressive and really worked the second big climb and led a large portion of the race until Kempson ultimately caught him en route to his first world championship. But these three gentlemen, they have created, I would say, a much bigger gap than we even thought they would early on, despite knowing they'd be aggressive.
If you're an athlete from yesterday, like a Ryan Atkins, are you worried about this type of pace? We've seen Atkins in the past able to run people down, and he is as dialed in with how to race an obstacle course race more than anyone else in this field. But we've seen this year these athletes are really fit, they're really strong, and Atkins hasn't had that ability to kind of reel people in the way that he would. Would you expect to see him being aggressive, being right behind Logan, or kind of biding his time, knowing there's a couple of descents there to make it up?
Yeah, I can't really get a read on him right now. Because in his mind, he saw this yesterday, right? He saw Rylan ahead doing his thing and ultimately caught Rylan because he was more proficient on these type of obstacles and beat him. And so he has that in his mind knowing, listen, I did it yesterday. I've got even more time today. But I don't know if the gap was ever quite this big at the same time. So there's that moment where, all right, the rubber band can stretch and it can stretch and it can stretch. But when that thing gets close to snapping, I have to make a decision.
And yesterday, the decision was made for him just based off of the skill and fitness and speed of this race. Today, it is more of a decision. If he's more kind of needing to understand how his energy is going to play out for the entire race and compared to everyone else's. So he could miscalculate this or he could nail it on the head. More often, we see him calculated to the 98th percentile and you come around second. So hopefully he's able to be assertive here. So here's our first look at a technical obstacle. This is Tyro Traverse, essentially with, I think last year they called these gorilla ropes. So just same as a Tyro in Spartan. So Veerman made quick work of that.
We'll get a better look here of the gap now, I would assume.
Looks like we got Kempson and the Logan still in third, Kempson in fourth, and here comes a big pack. I'm happy to see Logan also being aggressive here, coming in with fresh legs. You'd want an athlete like him to be assertive and not really stick in that pack to let people go. So we got a little bit of a descent here. Look at Logan flying down this descent.
And Joshua Reed, who was MVP yesterday, is really going to give us some great images of how fast these guys are downhill.
Kempson. There's Atkins with tights, sitting in about fifth.
Yeah.
So this
terrain... And realistically, I think that in Atkins' mind, if we're racing his race, this seems like the smart place to be. You had Kempson challenge for the win yesterday. The winner is not here. This makes a lot of sense. They're both veterans on this course. They both understand it. This is the smart position to be. The problem is you are playing with a live grenade if you're letting Rylan get too far ahead.
And that's the thing. Maybe that is what Atkins is thinking, queuing off of someone like a Kempson who is going to, okay, here's another technical. Lachey looks like we're going to need. Rylan seems to be losing some time on this. Looks like Veerman was out. Kempson was able to catch Rylan on that obstacle. Atkins still sitting in fifth there. Now that's
a tricky obstacle to have early. I like that.
That is called Force 5 LC. We didn't get a good look, but it looked like a long Lachey. It looked similar to what we had in drop zone at the bottom of the course yesterday. We got some of the women lining up here. Not as tight of a pack at that start line.
No, it's a much smaller field than what we saw on the men's side. And yet at the top, it's every bit as competitive. Now, what we've seen here is that Ryan has not pulled down on this field on that descent. Mm-hmm. This is one area where he, and going back a long time, Hoey Call, and then in the mid past, John Albin had a clear advantage over everyone in the field. And now, even though he might still be the best descender, it's really incremental how much faster he can move downhill compared to a Veerman, a Rylan, a Logan, a Kempson. He's got some spectacular defenders or descenders ahead of him, and it negates a little bit of that advantage he's always enjoyed.
And the women are off. So right now, currently on the men's side of things, we have Tyler Veerman in front, Rylan Shedegg and Ryan Kempson basically second and third. Logan might be in second, Rylan and Kempson in third, fourth, with Atkins back a little bit. And this is a chase pack here. The women are off. We're going to catch the men at the west part of the obstacle. I'm going to kick it over to Emily here, and Josh might be able to catch some of the women as they're coming up. So as this is where the course really differs. There was no real massive descent, a bit of a slight downhill as we got to catch Josh going down. And this is Emily over at Skull Valley, which will be the next technical obstacle that we will see.
Now, we have a pretty interesting development on the men's side. Everything is strung out in single file. First through 25th, it's single file running right now. And the second thing is that the top 6 or 7 men are all North American. And then you've got this big contingent of Europeans chasing. So again, it might just be the crazy aggression from the start has not meshed with the Europeans' race plans.
And here on phase camera, we have Chris Rogloski, who I believe is leading the early portions of the women's race. She was aggressive getting out the gate yesterday. It seems to be a strategy she's adopting, is just getting out and getting people out of her way, and then just kind of settling into herself. So just because she's out this hard doesn't mean she's going to be setting a breakneck pace like Tyler Veerman was. So this pace, the group might come back together, but it seems like Chris just likes to get space to work with.
Yeah, we've probably seen this 4 times this year, where against really quality national level fields, she'll create a gap initially. And generally the field comes back to her and rejoins, and the race begins within, 2 to 4 minutes. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't expect to see a Veerman-esque breakaway here, but at the same time, Chris recovers better than any human on the planet other than maybe Ryan Atkins. So maybe she's just feeling spectacular and is getting to work today.
Yeah, and when she goes out hard, it's not like the classic example of a runner joining an obstacle race and making mistakes. She just puts it out there. The group will come back to her. She'll run her own race. I don't think she's too concerned about what anyone else is doing. We don't have the fresh athlete in this race like we did on the men's side. Basically, everybody who we will expect at the top had run yesterday. So we don't have anybody with beaming with that confidence and fresh legs wanting to get out hard like we have on the men's side of the field.
And she's an interesting power hiker where she stays pretty vertical and she doesn't always use her arms. You'll watch from time to time, you'll see her arms kind of slip off behind her, and she's very upright. Whereas a lot of the men, you'll see Rylan, you'll see Atkins, you'll see Kempson, they will get real low and they're going to power down through their hiking. She kind of glides along.
And we'll see what we have at the chase pack behind her. Faye's going to give us a good look here. It's hard to tell who we have. Is that a better look or a worse look, Bracken? That looks like
the master's saying to stay there, but
looks like cell phone cover.
Second, making a charge, and that's good. That is a fantastic sign because we saw her chasing and in trouble, in debt all day yesterday. Watching her commit early is a real good sign.
This looks like Annie Doobie, and what would you call that? Fuchsia?
And maybe third. Magenta even.
That might be a magenta color. But this does look like a rookie in second. Like I said, she may have not had the result that she was looking for yesterday. So it's good to see her being assertive early in this race here. Let's kick the Josh, see where he is. Oh, Emily making gestures here. So
first through third coming down the mountain into the west base obstacles.
There we go. Big box here.
Look at this.
It's still Tyler coming in. So they reeled him in. Kempson's running another great race. After that big jump from Kempson into Skull Valley. Let's see how Rylan handles this.
Well, Rylan got to watch him. Kempson came up. Veerman stepped onto it, took a quick assessment, and entered the obstacle. Kempson came up and launched onto it with a grip, and Rylan watched him do it and did the same thing. So he got to learn a little bit.
Yeah. So it looks like Logan and Atkins on Skull Valley at the same time as well. And you got to get a glimpse at Veerman with that obstacle proficiency. And we are still seeing Faye out here watching the women kind of power up. And we've been able to see these women in this initial climb here. So we're not exactly sure who's where. It looks like we got a shot of Lindsay in that mid pack on the right side. But again, on the men's side, we got a chance to see Tyler Veerman going through a technical obstacle and monkey swinging through something that he's never seen before. So we talked about it before. He does have athleticism and strength, and we were able, and that was just on display at Skull Valley there.
Yeah, Kempson launched out, skipped the first, 8 feet of the obstacle, caught right up to him, and Veerman left the lead. That's just not something you expect to see off someone who's never done this obstacle before. So like you said, it speaks to how he's going to be able to adapt on the fly here today.
So the men are headed through a couple of technical obstacles. We got Skull Valley, we got a rope climb, a farmer's carry, and another obstacle called Snake Pit, which are vertical ropes to go through. So this is going to be a bit of a grip grinder here. So we'll see if that plays a factor in the athletes at the top. Looks like we got a Noob Sanity athlete flying through. Couldn't tell if that was Briz or Jared.
Looks like Briz to me. He's got the shades on this morning.
Nice sunny day out here in Vermont. On the women's side, what looks like Lindsay is, again, tucked into fifth or so. The similar position that we saw her yesterday. Ultimately, her position yesterday wasn't the factor. It was just the obstacles toward the end of the race. So it seems like she is being comfortable, feeling confident in this early climb and not looking to expend too much on the women's race.
Yeah, she's rolling into the race the way we always see Lindsay roll in, at her own pace. And she's going to work her way straight up the field. She's going to descend well. It's on the people at the front now to keep the pressure on her.
Let's pull this to our main screen, see what kind of cover we can see on. So this is the Tyro Traverse. It looks like Ulriki's still sitting in second here on the women's race. The men's race are just getting through Skull Valley through technical obstacles on the west part. And it looks like we have Chris Roglaski, Ulriki Evanson. Can't quite tell who third is here.
I think Annie's side by side.
Annie's still next to Ulriki. Perfect. You'd like to see her here in this course this early. Also being assertive, getting out to the front. I'm just going to have more time to learn these obstacles. And who's this in the green?
There's Beckstrom there.
There's Ida coming through in the all white.
She's got a European chase pack here, which is always good.
Was Lindsay in that chase pack? I would imagine she was.
No, I think she's right. Thought she was right behind that chase pack.
Let's see who this next crew of people are.
Tiffany Palmer.
Also Tiffany Palmer and Jareen. Is that? No, that's Bethany McChesney.
Yeah, McChesney right up with. I like McChesney and Palmer working together here. They should balance out strengths pretty well.
So let's flip it to Emma. Looks like she has looking like some sort of descent here, some tall grass. Do you recognize these athletes coming through?
Yeah, they're just coming back down into that same obstacle there.
Okay, we're still at Skull Valley on
the
men's side of things.
So the way that Ryan and Lindsay race, they close faster than just about anyone, but they also start at their own pace. And that's such a powerful thing to do in an endurance race because you guarantee that you don't tip over earlier. However, the downside to it, which is if it goes wrong that you're not gaining on people when you expect to be. Whereas if you're just up in a pack with someone and they're not pulling away and you're not getting dropped, you can just hang on their shoulder and feel like you're doing it right. But if you start out 30 seconds down and then think, all right, I should be closing now, and you're still 30 seconds down, it doesn't feel like you're maintaining. It feels like you're not catching. And that starts to be a little bit tricky. Now, I'm not worried about either of them yet, but we're starting to see a bigger gap than I would have expected.
So on the screens now, we're going to have Josh positioned at Gibbons, so we will get to see another flagship obstacle here and see how the athletes will come through, and he'll be able to follow with them. And Faye is going to catch up and then the women's are going to kick out west to those obstacles like Skull Valley that we have a camera. Emily's positioned out there, so we'll be able to see updates as this comes through. Do you expect Chris to keep the pedal down here? Like, it seems like, again, we talked about she's being assertive. She has been assertive in these races in the past. Do you see it's just her dumping it out early and just making it a race about guts, which she arguably had more than anybody? Or do you think the pack kind of closes in on it?
I don't know if she'll have a say in it. I think that check kind of comes due. You've got to back off slightly. Now, she does have such phenomenal endurance that she should be able to redline for a while, but the chase pack's just that good. So I think it does close down, and you're going to have, I would expect that pretty shortly here, we will see like a 4 to 6 group pack, a 6-person pack working together for the middle chunk of this course.
We are about 18 minutes into the men's race. They're circling back around and coming into some more technical obstacles. From last time we saw them, we had Tyler Veerman in the front, Rylan Shadag, Ryan Kempson, and Logan Broadbent in the chase pack, as well as Ryan Atkins right with that. So the top 5 is pretty clear at this point. And on the women's end of things, we had Chris Rogloski after that first climb leading things, Ricky Evanson, who is also right in that mix with Annie Doobie and then Lindsay Webster, Ida, and the whole contingent of European athletes coming through.
You never want to highlight people's struggles, but I think this is important to watch Emily's camera right here for a second, because we saw how easy the lead men made this rig look. And now we see you have the bottom half of the field coming through, and they're having to use their elbows and their shoulders, chicken winging their way up that initial bar. They're falling off, they're resetting, they're moving very, very slow through it and just trying to find any way through. And it's a great reminder of how really, really good the top end of these fields are.
We watch the athletes go through it, and we think that it is just as easy as being like an American Ninja Warrior getting through. But every one of these obstacles takes a lot of skill, a lot of strength. And you're right, Bracken. This is a reminder. This obstacle by itself, Skull Valley, is one that people are practicing at home and are trying and taken many bans in the past. So these athletes up front are just dialed in, and they are good. They are as good as we've seen in this sport.
And I was at the first OCR World Championships back in Kings Domain in Oregonia in Ohio. And that first Skull Valley looked nothing like this, Rich. It was very, very straightforward. You just climbed up a little rope, got onto it, and went straight across on boards and skulls. It was challenging, but the sport was young. What it has progressed to is pretty spectacular, to now that this is considered the same version of that with the same difficulty level. But if you had to look back now, if this is rated like a 7 out of 10, that would now have been like a 4. And at the time, that was our 7. It's just amazing how this sport has progressed in the last half decade, 7 years, I think.
And just the athletes with the training and the available resources to them and how good they can get on this. It was really a clinic watching that 3K yesterday, and even the top guys getting through this really challenging obstacle. So it is just a testament to the time that these athletes are putting in and how good they are and how fit they're becoming outside of just the ability to swing through these obstacles.
Yeah, and we're 20 minutes in. This is probably the 3rd grip obstacle, and we see people already having to really, really struggle. And you can't.
We may have lost Bracken there for a second, so we're just looking here at Skull Valley with Emily on the right. We've got some of the chase pack of the men waiting on the top group of women. Josh Reed is getting in position to catch the top men. So again, this battle is taking place through the woods at this moment, and we're going to see things kind of do shake out. On the men's field, I am excited to see if Tyler Veerman is able to continue to push the pedal down on this. I mean, he is as fit as anybody in this field, so it'd be interesting to see what happens when the athletes do want to come up and push on them, when Rylan or Kempson, if they're going to try to make a move or if they're going to bide their time and make it down that big descent. Because we have a huge climb coming still. We are not quite at the major climb that we saw last year that was such a separator and that big descent. So this climb, it looks like it is going to be really steep. It's going to be mostly power hiking to get through it. And we have a very big group of athletes who are going to be proficient at that. And we got a great rabbit out there to help show you that coverage. So we got our guy back in the mix. So we are still waiting on seeing how that plays through. Again, we had Tyler Veerman, Ryan Kempson, Logan Broadbent, Rylan Shadag, and Ryan Atkins in that top 5 with us. Bracken, are you with me?
I'm here.
You're back. I knew you would be. Perseverance.
This is all we can do. I had an obstacle retry here.
Yeah, this is a mandatory completion. No penalties assessed. And again, this is what's fun about these mandatory completion races is that we get to see these athletes fly through the air and take chances because it's not a 2-minute race killer if things don't work out the way that they planned it to do. So that's why this race is a really fun format as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, did the whole stream drop off or just me?
Just you.
Really?
Oh, we have Emily at Skull Valley. Looks like Chris first to get to the obstacle. We're gonna go full screen here.
We can see that gap already closing.
Yep. Looks like Lindsay took her time on that descent to get herself back into the mix.
So we have Ulrike, we have Lindsay, and we have Chris.
Chris still in first. Chris is just so smooth through this, and that's. I mean, I think Chris gets plenty of credit for the athlete that she is, but her efficiency and proficiencies through these obstacles is just as good as anyone's. And on top of everything else that she can do, I don't think we spend enough time talking about how amazing she is through these. Looks like Annie Doobie caught up to Lindsay a little bit through Skull Valley, sitting in 4th now. Yeah, and making a press through.
And Ulrike moving right past Lindsay, probably putting 30 meters worth of time on her on that obstacle. It's still early. This is early days still, but it's not a real positive sign for the reigning champ.
I would imagine she's feeling pretty comfortable, pretty confident here into the rope climb. Pretty tall rope climb here. So again, this is a lot of vertical grip that the athletes are going to encounter here, which we didn't get much of yesterday with the rope climb and with that snake pit. Yesterday we were horizontal for the most part, just like we see in Skull Valley. So we'll see if that plays a factor at all into the grip of these women. And we got a farmer's carry in between there as well. So this could be a place where we see a shakeup. It's just mean.
Throwing a farmer's carry into a grip-based OCR race really tips some people over.
So it looked like we had a top 4 of Chris, Ricky. Looked like Annie moved past Lindsay going to the rope climb, and then Lindsay Webster into this next rig, which is what is this rig that we have here? I don't know. Looks like is that a low rig? What do we got here, Bracken?
No, it's not a low rig, but I'm just like you. I'm blanking on this name here.
This might be snake pit or trapeze.
I think snake pit has ropes.
I thought so too. This must be trapeze.
Yeah, this is that trapeze one. Couple rings right up into several trapeze bars to monkey across.
So we have Abby over here at, that looks like Gibbons, correct? Yes, Abby's at Gibbons. So this is the next stop. We'll see the men. Emily has this obstacle at trapeze, which we're seeing some of the chase pack come through. Should be awaiting the top women through that obstacle. And then it looks like we have Josh we'll catch them on the climb up to Gibbons.
Now, Gibbons here, this is going to be a litmus test for my new racers here. For Veerman, for Rylan, for Annie. This obstacle right here is going to kind of set the tone for the day, in my opinion. It's an obstacle where it basically has a, what would you call it? Hanging suspended arms that you have to take 2 mini monkey bar pipes and place inside of that kind of mechanism, and then swing through and place a pipe in the next one, remove the one from the previous arms and swing through. It's basically like deconstructed mini monkey bars, and you carry the bar with you the whole time.
We got word that Josh is going to be coming. We're going to be seeing Tyler Veerman in the screen on your left, and on the right, we should see the chop woman. We are seeing Chris Rogloski going through trapeze right now, still holding on. And again, we shouldn't see any issue with her swinging through here. You can see how she does have that hip control, strong grip, strong shoulders, no problem through this. Really impressive.
So as we come up with Joshua here, and we'll see people get to Gibbons, It's an obstacle that many of these gentlemen have not done, and there is an absolute technique to it. There's a right way and a wrong way through this obstacle, and if you start missing your placement into there and things start spinning on you, you're in trouble. So I'm very interested to watch these gentlemen come through.
Looks like we have Ida coming through. Did we see second place there? Is that
was
Ida?
Her. Yeah, because Annie and Lindsay are back here.
All right, let's see how this is something Annie hasn't seen before. So we'll see how she's able to swing through it again.
Great,
strong, easy. Yeah, no, when they're straightforward, monkey swing, Annie's not gonna have a problem with this. She got held up on that low high thing yesterday, and like things that kind of change planes were a problem for her, but she's seen it so she's staying in fourth. Looks like we have Josh as the top two. Oh, here we go. So we can see now coming into sight, this is after climb. Tyler is still in front.
And Tyler is not a big power hiker whenever he can avoid it. He is the guy that he's kind of like Ray Acobo, where he's just going to keep running up as much of the grade as he can. And what that leads to are gaps early in the race. The question is, what happens later in the race? Does that come due, and does it kind of bite him? But early on, he's really building up a gap here.
That might be Seru Beckstrom that we saw coming through in 5th to 6th position, and another athlete who I could not make out on Emily's camera. So we have Tyler Veerman going down the descent. We didn't get a good look at who was in second, but I think it's fair to say it's Kempson, Rylan. And it's impressive that Tyler's holding off the engine of Rylan. He probably put a little bit of space on him on these technical obstacles and is now just hanging on and pressing here. If you are Tyler Veerman, do you press this descent? This is still really early. We have the biggest climb of the course coming up very shortly. How much do you think you should expend here? He has a little bit of a gap, and he seems to be kind of pressing on. So he's the strategy of opening things up. He continues to push on.
This is interesting with him because he has ultra training in his legs. He was preparing for a race where he was going to have to do 30,000 feet of vert over the course of 24 hours, and so his quads had to be bulletproof for descending. So is this a case where an hour and a half feels so fresh and free that he over revs early, or are his legs so bulletproof right now that he doesn't have to worry about holding back on some of these descents?
It's a luxury to have that type of volume packed into legs for a race that's only going to be about 15K, and he's going to descend, 3,000 feet maybe? So,
yeah, he certainly has the fitness and the durability in his body to be able to handle this type of pounding right now without really any issue. I think the real issue becomes, I don't think it'll be the downhill. It'll be, will he lose some of his uphill running from just due to the aggression he had early on?
Yes, exactly. Basically, how high end can he keep his effort before he needs to pay it back? Because preparing for an ultra race, he's set at one slower pace for a longer duration. But we've seen Tyler in the past. His high-end running ability on mountains is as good as anyone's. So
it really is.
We'll see how that works. So we got word that Seru Beckstrom is in 6th. And we're getting a bunch of female athletes get through trapeze right now. This does look like a taxing obstacle, but everybody's handling it really well. Again, just to your testament, Brecken, earlier, that the athletes they just know how to do this stuff now.
They really do. And this is so taxing on the female side because they don't have separate lanes. So that long reach for the men is a longer reach for the women. The shorter you are in stature, the more taxing an obstacle is like this because you have to swing harder, you have to torque your shoulders harder, and yet everyone seems to be making it through relatively unscathed.
So Tyler just got over confidence climb, still in first. I believe that's what that obstacle was, kind of an A-frame slant wall. We should be coming up to Gibbons here shortly. And then we have Gibbons, a low rig, and another rig, 2014 rig. So we got a couple of hard obstacles coming our way. So we'll see what Tyler can do with his first real look at a technical, dense piece of the course.
Rich, we saw the first climb, the first descent, and then the women start the next climb and getting through a few obstacles to get there. And we saw a really interesting piece of action there, which is Ida went from 5th or 6th to second.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see any sort of spectacular action do it. We just suddenly saw her in second. And there didn't seem to be something that would lead to like big failures. It was just a little bit technical. And right away, the obstacle master moved her way up right next to the lead.
And Tyler's showing us that he may also be an obstacle master. Not even a hiccup on that Gibbons, not even missing one time through. So that was great on his end. Who we got here in second then?
That was Rylan.
That was Rylan?
Now, Tyler went up and spent some time at an obstacle gym in Denver, didn't he, recently?
I believe so. So Gibbons are available for gyms to purchase, so you will see people practicing with them. So it looks like he had some practice because that is how you do it.
I think Jack Bauer was talking about how Tyler went to this gym recently and spent a long time working on some of these race-specific obstacles. And I thought Gibbons was one that he struggled with initially and then figured it out. And clearly right there, he has it figured out.
That has to be a relief to get through that because even though if he had struggles with it in practice, it was on his mind. At this point of the race where we are about, where are we about? We're about 35 minutes in. So we're getting up to this low rig here, which the biggest challenge is just keeping things up high.
Yeah.
Looks fairly straightforward with rings and pipes.
And Tyler's not very tall. He's probably 5'10", and he has exceptional core strength. So this is the type of obstacle that just is going to be pretty good for his body type and his athletic skill set.
He'll have no problem getting through. As we see, he does come through on his first attempt with a bit of a gap here. And
yeah, he's
still sticking around.
Rylan's still there, and Tyler's an entire obstacle ahead.
So we've seen Rylan really pour it out there in the races that he has won in OCR, most recently in Kelowna. He had it from the jump, essentially. Now we're 30 minutes into this race, a climb, a descent, several technical obstacles. Do you think he would be getting frustrated at this point with what Tyler's able to do? Rylan doesn't seem to be able to make up any ground on the climbing and descending. Do you think he makes a push into this last climb to try to close that gap before the obstacle density, or is he just, this is his race at this point?
I think he's got to make a push on the terrain at this point because we saw a semi-technical obstacle right there. That's fairly technical, and probably took twice as long to get through as Tyler did.
He still got through it fairly well. I've been impressed with the way he's been able to navigate through these type of things. I mean, he's a great athlete. He's a rock climber as well. And here's the 2014 rig that we're going to see Rylan come up. So we're getting a lot of grip stuff here.
Yeah, we are. And if he's starting to leak a little time to Tyler on these, then yeah, he's going to have to really send the next descent. So and he looks good. He's so competent. It's just that Tyler didn't have to turn around and restart a different section of that. On the last low rig, you saw that Rylan just at 2 different points realized there's a better way, and he adjusted on the fly, which is a great skill to have, but Tyler didn't have to do that.
And again, getting through something that he's probably never seen with those rings as footholds, navigated it pretty well. And looks like we have third place coming up. Let's get a good look at who this could be coming through. Not going to get a look. But we got Rylan powering away, Josh chasing him, and Rylan's chasing Tyler. So Tyler doesn't even necessarily seem to be in his direct line of sight here. So he's going to have to make a push because I think now we're headed up.
Yeah, and we've been asking for Veerman this year. Because of his work schedule, he just hasn't been able to race very often. And this, I think, right now is showing why we were all so anxious to see Tyler out on a course, because we know how good he really can be. And his training has just gone up another notch this year, and we haven't really been able to see him prove it on course. And today he's out here letting us know exactly how good he is.
So we have a pretty steep climb here. You can see Rylan immediately goes into a power hike up some nasty, long grass. Tyler, I think, was already at the top of that climb by the time they even got there to start. So we're going to see a big climb here, pretty sustained until we get to the top where we're going to see one of our 2 carries on the course today, where we do have that fit fighter carry at the top. I don't know if this is also going to be a double or a single at the top here, but that's the next place where we're going to see some obstacle density, and Josh will be there rolling with them.
So this right here is decision point on course. You've got a long, this is going to be close to double digits, I assume, to the top of the mountain climb that they're in the midst of. You have a long climb, and the race will get away from you if you can't get back in touch with the race. However, if you can make a move, we saw Logan have a great move here last year. We saw Kempson get up into the mix, and we saw VJ start to falter right about at this point. So can somebody change their fortune right now, or does their race just leave them behind? I think they find out on this section of the course.
This really is the make or break section, like you had mentioned, where now everything is real. No matter what your strategy was, your fitness is kind of starting to put into play, your ability to climb, your ability to get these obstacles. Fatigue is going to be setting in a little bit more, and you might just have to narrow down your focus as opposed to having it so wide and where you are in terms of the race here. Ryland seems to be aggressive. I'd love to see who we got coming behind, because, Atkins is going to have to make a move at some point if we expect him to be at the top where he is projected to be. We don't see many. Looks like, okay, we have third and fourth on that climb now.
It looks like an Atkins style of hiking, but could it be Kempson?
Might be Kempson.
Yep, that's got to be Kempson.
Looking like Kempson in third. He is strong. He's still in striking distance.
So I would assume Atkins is behind him on his shoulder, but
yeah, it looks like Atkins in fourth.
Yeah, this is shocking to see. Kempson looking like an old school cross country runner today. I like it.
Love it. He's got like the 3 inchers on, and then I thought he was gonna take his shirt off as soon as you said that. So Kempson is sitting in third here is what we got eyeballs on, and we have Atkins directly behind him. We would assume someone like a Logan is shortly behind Atkins. We have Tyler Veerman in front, Ryland Shadig in second, all with a little bit of a, you think that's an equal gap between first and second and third, or what did that look like to you, Bracken?
It feels like it, yeah. Now, do you mind bringing up the 15K course so we can get the audience a little kind of a dial in on where we are in the course, an update on how much is to go?
We'll pull that up really quick. So we are headed up to the big climb to the right of your screen. That's straight up. That's where we are currently. And at the top, you see a bundle of obstacles there. That is going to be the next section where we're going to see. And a long descent. This is almost a mile of a descent that is completely uninterrupted for some athletes. So this could be a spot that many athletes had circled on for their race strategy to attack.
Thank you. Fantastic production values there, Rich.
Dang.
So what we see here is really just everyone in the midst of their own race. And this is the exact opposite of what I thought we'd see. Last year, we had a group of athletes. And without Albin, you would think that everyone is kind of on an equal playing field, and we're not right now. We see people that have distinct advantages on this course in different areas, and it's leading to these 50 to 100 meter gaps. And I thought we were going to see, much like last year and much like we're seeing on the female side, people trading spots and working in a pack until that move gets made late. It's just not happening at all what I thought.
And on the women's side of things, I think it is still Chris who is in the lead, followed by Ida, and then a group of Lindsay Webster, Annie Doobie, and Ulrike Evanson, I think, are our top 5 currently. We'll get some eyeballs on them as soon as we can. Right now, we're seeing how this big, long climb is going to shake things up. It looks like people are just going to manage their effort up this, because it doesn't look like a very runnable section of this course. And where it's placed, it's pretty nasty. This is a pretty nasty spot to have a climb like
you guys
this.
hear me?
Gotcha, Josh, our man on the field. What's going on?
We got 60 seconds and Ryland. Seconds between Ryland and Atkinson. 3, 4.
So I think he's at 60 seconds ahead for a gap at the top. So Veerman has already opened up a minute gap over the field.
Yeah, that's pretty stunning. And this is the type of climb, like you said, where maybe decisions don't matter. Once you get to the point where we've got to be at 30, 35% incline here, there's just not that running option where people can say, forget it, I'm putting the hammer down on this. It's just, I'm going to power hike or I'm going to power hike slightly faster. There's not minutes waiting for people here to make up.
Now it looks like it's a bit warm. We saw Kempson fussing with his top, and he's probably has the least amount of clothing that we've seen in this field. Do you expect people to start stripping things off? Is that something that you would do in a course like this? If you know it's looking like maybe it gets into the low 50s, but sunny, do you think that'll play a factor at all? Or do you think the weather is still pretty mild that it's not necessarily going to matter for these athletes?
I think they're just going to, when you're bent over power hiking and you're on the exposed face of the mountain, your face just starts dripping sweat right down in front of you. And so you start feeling really, really hot. But the moment they crest, they're going to get on obstacles, then they're going to bomb down the other side. That wind and the descent's going to cool them off a little bit. So I don't think this is going to turn into a cramp fest by any means. I don't think people are going to realize, oh, I didn't bring enough water. It's just this climb right here is going to be really, really hot and sweaty.
And on the right of your screen, we have Faye waiting on the top women. She is at an obstacle, I believe, that is confidence climb, which is right before the big climb that we are seeing the men take on right now. Right now, we have third place Ryan Kempson, who is about a minute behind Rylan Shadag, who is about a minute behind Tyler Veerman. That is your top three. We have Ryan Atkins sitting in fourth, directly behind Kempson, maybe about 20 seconds back, I believe is what Josh had mentioned.
Now, on the women's side, yes, I believe you're going to have to see people make wardrobe choices. We saw probably 5 or 6 women in the top 12 who had jackets on. And unless you are really, really, really struggling with cold, this climb right here is not a jacket climb. You can see that sun is out. When you're on the side of a mountain like this, really exposed, there's no tree cover. I don't care if it's 50 degrees. It feels like 75 when that sun's beating down and you're power hiking at redline.
And this is just perfect that this type of race where we get all the different elements from all the different races has something like weather playing a factor, where yesterday was cold, was wet. Today's a little warmer, so we're getting a little bit of everything. And that's the beauty of this event this time of year. I think Vermont's a great location for it because we do get this type of terrain, and the weather's a bit of a roll of the dice, which is what we want. It's not perfect conditions for OCR. It's not what we're here for. So another testament to this race just being one of the best challenges that encapsulates OCR that we have.
And that shot when he turned and looked down there, it gave some good perspective of how big of a climb this is. Hills very rarely look as steep as they are on camera, but you can see that these people are working up a serious grade right here. And Atkins is still back there in pushing, but he's not reeling him in as fast as he may have in the past.
And you love to see Kempson in this spot. The previous last year, he did have this 15K victory and a silver in the 3K. But over the course of the past, year and a half, 2 years, we've seen him do mostly savage, mostly short course things. And that historically, one of the rubs on Kempson is these longer races were some things that he did not have the power to sustained endurance to finish off strong. He's since remedied that, but we haven't seen him do really big work on a longer course until about 2 weeks ago at Killington. So he's got to be high on confidence for this type of duration and this type of course. So I'm hoping he continues to push things forward.
Yeah, we saw some flashes. I think he was 5th at Utah one year, and he was 6th or 7th at Tahoe the last year there. So he's been building towards this. But Joshua Reed, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it would seem that he is starting to maybe be closer to Rylan than Rylan is to Veerman. And this could open up an interesting finish. Because you're starting
to be a case. Yes.
You're starting to catch glimpses of Rylan's silhouette at the top of these little false summits.
And Faye has the women's race. We just got a glimpse of Chris. There she is on your screen on the right. After the confidence comes, so she should be coming up to Gibbons here. So again, more technical obstacles that really can shake up the women's race. And we'll see how much of a gap she has on Ida, because Ida's going to be a problem on this part of the course. We have 3 technical obstacles with Gibbons, low rig, and a 2014 rig, which was long. And I could see some women having to try that again.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if they don't have to retry it, this is a rig you can lose 10 seconds on.
So here we go. Chris is coming up to Gibbons again. One of the flagship obstacles that we'll see here at OCR World Championships. An absolute band stealer. But Chris is so strong in that straight arm position and just has such good body awareness that this doesn't seem to be any issue for her.
No, and this is a fairly tricky obstacle. And they make it look very easy.
So we saw Chris in the lead there getting through Gibbons. Not exactly sure if we saw anyone the chase pack behind, but she, again, has been assertive. I projected earlier that she might allow the group to come back to her, but her obstacle proficiency is just keeping her in her place, so she might feel controlled right now because she's not won the race completely out of control from the jump and then just collapse. So,
Faye, is there anyone in sight of her right now?
Again, hard to tell if those are...
Give us a thumbs up or thumbs down. Are there any women in sight coming off the rig?
Okay, so we do have
a
race
right here. Thank you.
Looks
Annie.
like that's Annie in the mix.
I would assume Lindsay. Yeah.
Great, that's what we love to see. And then, is that another female competitor in the gray right next to them?
I think it's a camera woman.
Okay.
This is a fantastic chase pack right here. It's only 2 people, but when it's these 2, that's all you need. These 2 are going to absolutely work together to try to reel Chris in.
And this is the ascension Chris Rogloski has made, and as we see her coming through low rig in this past year or so, as being in that mid pack to that front pack and kind of pushing kind of the same progression that Annie made the year previous. Chris has now joined that group, and you can see that she's not content chasing.
Is Chris right on the same obstacle as them right now?
I think all 3 women are on the same obstacle.
Does that mean Chris had a restart?
This obstacle did take some time. It did that
Annie
low rig.
looks like she's restarting.
And again, from someone like Annie, with Annie's background, she doesn't see these low rigs often. It's probably the first time she's seen something like that where she has to kind of traverse and then spin things around. But it looks like Lindsay did get out in front of Annie there. Not a great sign for Annie, missing something like this in the middle of an obstacle gauntlet. We have another one that could lead to some sort of pump. We hope not. But Lindsay made it through pretty well.
Yeah, it's not a great sign for Annie, but at the same time, if we had to take a guess where Annie might struggle, it would be getting down low. Like you said, changing planes. She has the longest frame in the field. That is where she on paper would fail. But look at this. You've got Lindsay Webster, the greatest of all time, closing right in on Chris. That gap closed really quickly.
So with this climb coming up, if you're Chris, are you hanging on to dear life for Lindsay? Because you would imagine Lindsay will naturally power past her on this climb. Even if it isn't even if that's not in her game plan, I think naturally we're going to see Lindsay take it. Do you hang on for dear life if you're Chris, or do you just settle into your race?
Rich, I have given up trying to think like Chris Rogloski because she and I are not on the same wavelength in terms of how things happen. But I do know that she is not afraid of anything. So I believe she will just stick her nose right in it over and over and over again.
And she's wearing those World Championship shorts that she wore for High Rocks, representing the United States of America. We have Atkins on the screen on your left, who is currently in 4th. Last time we saw was Tyler Veerman with a big gap. Rylan Shadag was kind of falling back toward Ryan Kempson for 2nd and 3rd, and this is Ryan Atkins here in 4th.
This will be very interesting to see as this camera pans to the right what this gap is, because Ryan doesn't look bad. He looks like he's moving with purpose. So how far up has he been able to eat into that gap at all?
And here we go. We're going to see the fit fighter. It looks like only one single carry. I'm sure Atkins would love it if this was, you had to carry 5 of them. Just one of these, I don't know how much of a difference this is going to make. And it looks like it's fairly at the top of this climb just about. So next up, we have a really small obstacle gauntlet and then a pretty long descent. There are 2 shorter climbs at the bottom that will be just terrible, that people will not want to do. So I think it will be important to maintain gap here.
Is leader coming through here?
You guys got me?
So, end of the carry.
Josh, what's up on the field?
Tyler is through. Ryland is second. Finn in third. And fourth. Still got about between Ryland and Kempson. No sign.
Yeah, Josh's audio is coming through a little bit choppy, but it sounds like we didn't even get to see Tyler Veerman by the time Atkins started that carry. Veerman was already out of there, so he's continuing to push forward. Looks like Ryland, I think that would be a place where he could get a bit of a reprieve from the course, and with the heavy carry is sitting currently in second as they're starting to roll up to a couple of obstacles at the top of this climb. We have a couple hurdles, a couple walls, cargo climb, and then balance beam. So nothing incredibly grip intensive here at the top. This shouldn't be any place where people are going to lose too much ground. It's going to be more of those rhythm breaker obstacles here. So I don't necessarily think there will be a shakeup before this big descent.
I don't either. But we saw an example there of why Ryan Atkins is so great. I don't think that you could get in and out of picking up that obstacle and getting onto the carry faster than he did. He didn't break stride. He picked it up with a pinch grip up out of there as he moved. Like if you said right now, Rich, go grab that on the run, that's the way it would look. And he's an hour into a race.
He's basically taking a baton. And on the right side, we're seeing Lindsay kind of reel in Chris Rogloski. I had projected that we will see Lindsay overtake her here, and we don't know what Chris will do in response to that. I would imagine if it is above what Chris can sustain, that she will let her go and kind of focus on that descent at the top of this major climb. But we have a lot of climbing to go on the women's side. Thank you for Faye for really hammering this climb with the top ladies.
Yeah, Faye's giving us great shots here. And this is Lindsay's world right here. This is essentially the mountain chain that they live in. Mm-hmm. Right? This is the exact terrain type that she lives in. It's lush. It's this type of grade. Out their back door, there is a slope like this. So this is what this really is her world. This is what she's best at. And we talked earlier that you might not have a huge decision to make on this. You just have what your legs are giving you. And she caught her early into the climb. You can see the 2 false summits ahead, and I believe there's a third. So there's a long way to go. And Chris now has to go into, all right, stop the bleeding mode.
And that seems to be what she is doing, is trying to just manage that effort. And Lindsay is just going to naturally go past. Doesn't seem to be creating a huge gap, but there has been a lead change on the women's side of the field, with Lindsay overtaking Chris on the biggest climb of the course. We're about halfway through things. It looks like we have Ryan Kempson on screen for Josh, who was sitting in third.
Right back on her.
She's hanging. So yeah, I was wrong on that. She is going to be assertive and go with her on this climb.
Now, this is the descent that Ryan Kempson rode to victory last year. He is familiar with this side of the mountain. He knows that he can close. Unfortunately, he has the greatest closer in the sport trying to chase him down. But this makes for a fantastic finish for us, because we get Atkins and Kempson fighting for the final podium spot, which is just exactly what the audience wants to see.
I love this spot for Kempson, and it's not necessarily that he needs the motivation to push himself as hard as possible, but he cannot let up because there's a monster coming behind him, and he's going to want to catch up to get himself into a better position, because he's not going to be content with third place here. So on both sides, he has a motivation to really push, so I expect to see him do exactly that.
Joshua, if you can hear us, can you give us a thumbs up if he has less than 30 seconds to Rylan, and a thumbs down if the gap is greater than 30 seconds to Rylan? Okay, so it looks like Rylan has gapped him a bit more. 30 seconds, 45, that 30 to 45 second range. that's going to be a tough ask on this final descent, but he's now going to be re-entering the area that he did yesterday. He's going to be getting down when they get back down to the festival grounds. He's going to be entering the place where he pulled away from a lot of athletes yesterday. And yeah, Ryland saw it yesterday as well, but Kempson has to know that he's got minimum. I think if I'm him, I'm thinking I've got 15 to 20 seconds on obstacles alone I can make up on the festival grounds. So now I've got to fabricate another 20 to 25 seconds somewhere else between now and then.
Well, the next obstacle we're going to see on the men's side is a 2022 rig. So this would be a place that none of these athletes have seen that obstacle to date. So it should be something new there. So that could be a place that could trip up some athletes at the top or in the middle. On the women's side, we are going up that big climb. We have Lindsay Webster in first and Krista Glasky hanging on, covering that move. Is going to see what she's got to the top of this climb.
I mean, we have beaten this story to death, but you talked about how she's wearing the same shorts she was wearing when she won the High Rocks World Championships. I mean, who in their right mind goes after both of these titles in the same year, let alone has the physical ability to do so? To be a hybrid champion and fighting against Lindsay Webster for an OCR World's 15K title, that's kind of just absurd.
The range that she has and just the confidence to do well in these type of events is pretty awesome. We're seeing something similar on the men's side. Ryland, who's sitting in second place now. We haven't seen him in the longer hybrid events or any championship hybrid events, but he has that type of ability. So these younger athletes who are coming in seem to be able to do it all.
Yeah, we're starting to see the people now, not necessarily that grew up doing it, because neither of these athletes did, but started it in their early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting those reps in when they're young, where you still have a lot of time to cement some pathways in a body that's still probably growing and developing, and that's a powerful thing.
And I think the resources available to the younger athletes now are more than those when someone like you who had started at around their age, but was brand new. So there's a little bit, again, of a roadmap to how to get better, being able to see how these athletes do on courses like this. And that could be part of it, but they are performing at a really high level. So it's exciting to see the young athletes do well across the board here at OCR World Championships and in the hybrid space.
Yeah, I did my first OCR race at 24, and I touched my first non-race obstacle at either 29 or 30. The first time there was an OCR facility that was suddenly there and you could use. So yeah, there was like a 5 or 6 year gap between when the sport really came into prominence and when the facility and training centers caught up.
And that's even with someone like a Ryan Kempson, who's built himself an obstacle course or has the ability to do something like that, or like a new Sanity, where you can now purchase these items and practice them as much as you want. So the athletes are putting in that work, and that's why we're seeing such great work. We almost rarely see a missed obstacle in a Spartan race. In this race, we're seeing people fly through it like they are on the TV show American Ninja Warrior. So the athletes are paying attention. They're striving to be better. So it looks like we're coming up to a rig here at the bottom. Looks like we're at the bottom of that long descent with third place Ryan Kempson. So let's see.
You saw some shots there. You couldn't see below his knee when he was descending. That was some pretty nasty, wicked, deep terrain he was running through. But that's exactly what he went through in Killington 2 weeks ago.
For someone like Ryan Kempson, looks like he made really short work of that rig. Looks like there's a place to Lachey there. What's up, Bracken? Oh, is that Atkins? Oh.
Yep, Atkins is right on him.
So it looks like Atkins made a big push down that descent. I mean, there's one more descent that they had from yesterday's. They're right at about the top of the climb from yesterday's 3K. We're going to see that over-under rig, and then we're going to get that same descent that we had in the 3K here in a couple minutes.
So if you are Ryan Kempson and you now have Atkins probably just 10 seconds behind, what are you doing? How do you approach managing the last quarter of this race?
If it's me, the last thing I want is Ryan Atkins on my shoulder and him being able to dictate what I need to do during a race. So if I'm Kempson, I'm trying to hold him off. I'm trying to create gaps. I'm trying to take advantages where I can and in and out of obstacles, because I don't want that guy anywhere near me.
No, you really don't. And you're kind of like You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you push harder to try to get away from him, you're playing into his hands because he can push harder down the descents as well, and now you're hurting. If you decide, like I did in a race one time, you know what? He's going to catch me either way. I'm going to try to cruise control the next quarter mile, save up, and then go on his shoulder. Well, it probably only took 300 meters, not 400. And then when he caught up to me, I couldn't hang on to him anyway.
Exactly. So you might as well stay away.
You're getting it on both ends. It's just kind of pick your poison here.
And this is going to be a fun descent here, seeing if Atkins can close that gap a little bit. We have one of the best descenders in the game, Joshua Reed, on the camera. So it looks like he's going to let them go. We're going to be able to catch the athletes who are now in 5th, 6th, and 7th, who are making out that top 10. On the women's side of things, we seem to be looking at Annie coming up in 3rd here. So we have Lindsay, Chris, and Annie Doobie in 3rd on Faye's camera as she's catching Annie coming to the top of this major climb.
And Annie has company there just behind her. I can't tell yet if that's a male or a female, but I believe that's a female athlete, and so she is not free and clear here. 3rd place is not hers yet.
And on the men's side, let's keep our eyes open for who we have coming through in that 5th position. We saw Logan Broadbent be assertive early to see if he's able to hang on after that big climb, or if there's a mix-up. If we haven't seen an Aaron Newell factor into this race yet. We haven't seen much of Yessa Deher, who finished 6th yesterday at the 3K and who is the European champion, I believe, at 15 as well. So we're not sure what's going to make up that top 10 yet, or that top 5, but it looks like Annie Doobie has 3rd place on the women's side currently.
Annie still with the jacket on, powering ahead, although she seems to run cold, doesn't she? She seems to go to the jacket and 2 gloves far earlier than a lot of the other women will.
She'll be a little bit more cautious when it comes to maintaining her warmth than others, so I think she's willing to sweat a little bit up a climb like that. And for Annie, who has been good with these climbs, we did see her get away from Chris on the Kelowna course on the early climbing. So if there's a place where she could make up some time, it would be here. So I'm hoping to see her be aggressive and let the obstacles just kind of fall where they will when they get there.
Now, am I mixing up stories, or am I remembering this correctly? In her background, she got severe frostbite when she was young, and it almost caused a bit of Raynaud's syndrome, and so she has really averse reactions to cold weather and has to stay on top of being warm. Is that Annie, who I'm thinking of?
I believe that. I don't know if there's a reason for the Raynaud's, but that is, she does have to deal with that for sure. And we see Logan here in 5th. So yes, Annie will glove up, jacket up, just to avoid the type of cold hands.
And Logan was leading this race at this point last year. Just this is the point where Kempson was starting to close down and pass. And the fact that he's in 5th right now would maybe seem like he's not having a great race, but Kempson is head and shoulders above where his fitness was last year. Mm-hmm. And you have Ryan Atkins in this race, and you didn't last year. This is not anything less than a very solid performance by Logan. And you didn't have a Ryland last year, and Veerman. I mean, this is, for all intents and purposes, he's in the same position he was last year.
The field is much deeper this year. I don't think that's even arguable. So him still being a server and putting himself in there. We haven't seen what kind of fitness he's been in, especially in the latter portion of this season. So I'm happy to see he's being aggressive, getting through and through that low rig before one of the longer final descents here. Logan's in 5th place. And we still got eyes on Annie in 3rd on the women's side. We haven't quite made it to the top of that climb. And
this terrain is so varied, despite the fact that it's just a ski slope. You have rocky sections, you have tame grass sections, you've got some mud here on Josh's screen on the left. We saw that deep knee and waist deep brush running that Kempson was doing before. These mountains on the East Coast here give you a taste of it all.
They really do, and they do a good job at this course, not making it overly technical. Like you could easily send them into the woods like a Spartan race would, and it just kind of completely changes how well an athlete could. They stick with the sharp, crazy descents and really steep uphills as well. So I think that ends up being a little bit more fair on the side of the racers for this. So it looks like we have an update that Tyler is about 2 minutes over Rylan at a place where we got a bit of an update. I'm guessing that is toward the bottom near the festival area. As they get down the descent, they're going to loop back up the mountain two more times. So we have 2 smaller climbs. Looks like Tyler Veerman is still punching the gas.
Yeah, 2 minutes over Rylan, who is moving backwards towards Kempson, maybe slightly, but it's not like he's just bleeding out up front. It shows that Tyler has just not guessed wrong on how hard to run these hills, and he's got that pedal firmly pushed to the floor.
So currently we don't have a camera on it, but Tyler's at Force 5 rig, and we'll be heading back up for the first of the final 2 climbs here. So the longest climb's out of the way, but still 2 climbs at the bottom of the course, which is just nasty, which is just not fun.
What does this mean for the men's field if Tyler Veerman decimates everyone and Rylan does the same thing and takes second? If those 2 go 1-2.
Does that just change the way that we're looking at obstacle racing, even at the most technical side of things? Some of the critiques that you'll hear is that, it's just the runners in OCR. That's all that matters when the obstacles aren't technical, when they're not challenging. Do we need to up the obstacle difficulty if now even athletes like a Rylan who can come in isn't spending a ton of time on these obstacles but still making it through? Or is this just where we are in the sport, where fitness again is going to reign supreme on this, where the biggest engine seem to be the 2 in the front?
Yeah, we've been waiting a long time for the new wave to take over. And now if 3 of the 6 male podium spots this weekend are taken by people in their mid to early 20s and people who are relatively new to the sport, you can't say VJ's new to the sport, but he's still one of the younger. This just might be that new wave finally putting their stamp on it, saying, listen, we've been doing it at the National Series races and you haven't given us our due. Now we did it at the World stage. At what point do you just say we're taking over?
And that could be the thing. We used to think that OCR, there's longevity in it because the athletes who are doing so well are on the twilight years of their career. Maybe there's just this amount of volume and experience that you need. But maybe not. Maybe we're seeing that younger athletes can come in, pick it up pretty quick if they have that athletic ability and the ability and just the grit to work hard. And I think that's good for the health of the sport. It's going to push everybody. It's going to push the athletes to keep on top of their game. Looks like we have Chris or Annie here at the balance beam obstacle, which is at the top of the obstacle gauntlet after that climb. So Annie's done with her big climb.
Yeah, and that's not an inherently difficult obstacle, but it just plays with your mind. You have to focus and dial in a little bit there, which is really the last thing you want to do when cresting a climb, is get really focused. You tend to hold your breath on something like that, and now you got to get right back to rhythm running.
It has to just be annoying. At least there's no penalties missing the balance beam.
So the other update is that Atkins and Kempson are together 2 minutes behind Rylan at that same rig.
That's a 4-minute gap between Atkins and Tyler.
And we've got to the water obstacle. We've arrived.
There's our mud. So Annie's going. Oh, it looks like there is a low crawl. Was she carrying the? No, that's after. I thought she was carrying the fit.
I thought you took it through this.
Maybe you do take it to that. Okay, that would make sense.
Yeah, I thought on this one you might take it over a wall and under a crawl.
I see. So that's not necessarily an obstacle gauntlet. It's a carry with obstacles throughout it. I see.
That was the rumor on course.
Okay. We are here to report the rumors.
That's all we're here to do.
That's what we're doing. So top 3 on the women's side: Lindsay Webster, Chris Rogowski, and Annie Dubia, who we see on your screen on your right. And then the men's field, as you said, Tyler Veerman, Rylan Shadag are both about 2 minutes apart from the closest athlete behind them. Tyler is in first, 2 minutes back. Rylan, 2 minutes back. Kempson and Atkins. And then Logan in a distant 5th.
I know I'm just asking for everything, but I'd love to know what that next chase group is comprised of. Who is it? Is it all the Europeans? Is it all the North Americans that we talked about were going to be a factor and who we haven't seen on camera today? Or are they all mixing it up together?
Looks like Josh has Tyler going past. So Josh is still at looks like that, probably the top of that first climb where we would see Lagaff. Josh, is that where you are? You were near Lagaff here? Yes, so seeing this is Ryland coming up behind Tyler. That didn't seem like 2 minutes to me.
No, it didn't.
So we're going to get some info on the time gaps. That, I don't know. What do you think, Bracken? Was that a minute? Maybe not even?
That's more like 30 to 45 seconds.
Yeah, Josh is saying that's only about 30. So Ryland's still coming.
25 seconds.
So we have another big climb, which is I'm sure where Ryland's going to want to pour that out. They're headed through Lagaff. This is something Tyler did not see yesterday. I don't anticipate him having issues getting through it, but Ryland did see this. And now this is where the 3K experience might play a factor into this race.
Now, one of two things happen. Either that time gap was not correct, but I believe it was, or someone's starting to crack out at the front, which is always an option in OCR. You at any given point, you can suddenly just realize, oh shoot, I'm empty. And it could be that big climb. It could be he just retried an obstacle, but that gap is 2 minutes down to 25 seconds in a hurry.
This looks like Atkins has made a pass into third.
I think we just saw Aaron Newell run down the mountain on the opposit side of that tape.
Love to see it. So, or we did not get to see a rig on the feed. So maybe there was a miss on that Force 5 rig at the bottom of the major descent that Tyler may have missed, and maybe it's not just a fitness thing. But we'll see. It's one of two. He's missing obstacles because he's fatigued, or he's running slower because he's fatigued. But we got Atkins here in third.
Ryland's, I mean, this whole pack is now comprised of people who close races. But Ryland's right there with Atkins and Kempson as guys you don't want on your shoulder with a descent and an obstacle gauntlet remaining. He's just going to be closing.
So as we head back
down. Matt Putin's got the leader coming through here.
All right,
I'm going to get a clock on this.
This is Tyler Veerman at Valkyrie, which is just an up and down on rings. Still looking pretty good.
You see him take a look back. A little fancy dismount there.
Looks like Kempson Josh has Kempson on screen.
As you go right back up the mountain past him, too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's interesting.
So that is the last climb Tyler's on. So Ryland's going to need to make a push here.
30 seconds.
Exactly 30 seconds. So we got a climb that was pretty similar to what we had on the previous one where it looked like Ryland made up a ton of ground. So Ryland's through Valkyrie and back up that climb. Do you have there's quite a gap between Ryland and Atkins here. Do you got this clocked?
I got the clock going.
We got two cameras on Valkyrie, it looks like, so I'll keep Matt's. And I think we've seen the top four here. Just probably scoot over to catch the top of this next climb, if that is doable, which it looks like it should be.
Right here. You guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes,
you
sir.
seeing him?
I am at the top of and Tyler has not come up yet. Those gaps, those 2 minutes at all. Tyler's
looks like
only has about 20. Ryland only 40 seconds, and Atkins had about 50 seconds. So those top four in 2 minutes of each.
So things are really compressing on the men's side. It looks like Atkins is making one of his patented pushes toward the back, and we'll see if
Although
he's
it's stretching out. Sorry, Rich. He's coming in right here. I'm going to cut you off and give you an exact timestamp here. Minute 35 he is behind.
Oh man. Behind Tyler or Rylan?
Behind Rylan, but that was the fastest we've seen someone go through.
He looks like he's feeling fresh, and again, this is something that Atkins has done over and over again, is come up a little bit short. Misplay his hand just a bit. He looks like he has strength. He's past Kempson. He's put a gap on Kempson. But is it going to be too late?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell with him. You can't put anything past him, but a minute 35 behind Rylan. And then, I mean, Kempson's still closer to him than he is to Rylan.
So on Abby's screen, here comes Kempson coming down. We have Chris Rogloski. Did we
That's
see
40 seconds there? Jeez. That's another quick one. But we've seen Atkins do this several times this year. This isn't a story we've heard from him, a narrative in the past, at least one that I can recall, where he doesn't necessarily crack early, but maybe he cracks early, or maybe he is just having dead legs early, and then they come alive later in the race. We've seen that race report from him several times. At the Leadville 100 bike race this year, he had it happen. I think that was the reply after his race in Kelowna, that he was just sluggish day one, got moving late, and then day two felt awesome. He seems to be having something going on with his races where his legs don't really respond until day two or until the second half of this race.
So we got a quick glimpse of, so we are at 0 screens now. Actually, let's pop over to Faye. We did get a quick glimpse of Chris Rogloski, but I'm not exactly sure where she was. She was coming up to the rig before the descent back down toward the festival area. So
we're like a Swede just ran by.
We got Josh back up. We should be seeing the men come. So this climb is a little bit longer than what we would expect. It seems to be a grind. Ricky, I believe.
And she's half ditched her top.
Faye, do you have a idea what place Ricky's in? You got a hand gesture for a number? Looks like she's in 4th. Great showing on her, and she finished closer to 12th yesterday. We saw Ricky be really aggressive up front, and things are paying off. She's the next athlete after Annie Doobie. Annie did have some struggles on the technical obstacles yesterday, so we'll see if Ulrike can make her move, but she looks pretty strong. It looks like she is still involved here. Looks very aggressive.
Yeah, there's a look to you when you've stopped attacking the descent, and she does not have that look. But look at this on the left of the screen here. This is now about a 10-second, 12-second gap, it looks like, between Veerman and Rylan. And maybe that gap's a little deceptive, but they are, for the first time that we've seen, on the same frame of a climb since probably the second mini climb of the race.
Getting word we have Logan 5th at Valkyrie. A huge gap between them. I'm not sure exactly where the chase pack is for the top 5 coming into Logan, but Logan Broadbent is still in 5th here. Let's kick to Abby, see where she's at. I think she's at the over-under. Here we got Tyler Veerman with the wrist curls situation. Let's see what that hand and forearm strength's looking like. Rylan's right there. They're on the same obstacle. They're going to get
shoulder to shoulder here for the first time in a long time.
So he is really closing, and it looks like I would imagine this is just on fitness, just on climbing ability. The good news for Tyler Veerman here is there's no more climbing. So we're going to get to the bottom and see what they can do to the obstacle gauntlet. The bad news is Rylan has seen every one of the remaining obstacles on the course.
Yes, he has. Now, it was tough to get a real time on that because of the glitch, but it looked like 8 to 10 seconds.
Oh, my goodness. Rylan may pull it off. Who would you put your money on here, Brian, to take this first place position with what we're seeing on course? I know you're going to hedge it, and that's fine.
I'm not going to. I always bet on the one who's closing. So if I just take how much I like Tyler out of this as a person, and I've known Tyler since probably 2013, if I just had faceless individuals and one of them took a 2-minute gap down to 10 seconds, that's the person I'm betting on.
So Annie had trouble on this obstacle that we're seeing in the top left yesterday. Something with the rules in this that you can't go under or over. There's some sort of technicality that she got caught up on. So we'll see how she manages the second day through, getting through the Force 5 over under. And you can see her grip strength really is playing a factor there, being able to hang on. And it looks like we have Tyler getting through.
I think you have to exit on top of the obstacle.
Yes, I believe it's something.
And I think that's what caught her yesterday.
So we have another low rig over here that Ryland's making his way through currently.
Those caving ladders set up like this are deceptively simple and yet tricky. Like, there's nothing to them, but technique on there will win you 3 or 4 seconds.
Kicking it to Faye. Looks like we have Ida on Faye's screen, who must be now in 5th to 6th. And Ryland on your left, who is in 2nd, chasing down Tyler, getting to the bottom. Faye confirms that Ida is in 5th place here.
Faye, if you can you give a thumbs up if she is descending faster than Ulrike was, and a thumbs down if Ulrike was out descending her? Okay, so it's how it looks. The visuals that Ida is just not racing as aggressively, or maybe just doesn't have the descent that Ulrike does.
And maybe this is part of her strategy. Someone who is as experienced as Ida and who is so good at the obstacles, she knows that she made up a ton of ground yesterday at the bottom of this course, and maybe she's planning on there being some shakeup there as well. So we're seeing Ryland. This is Skitch.
And he's done this. What we didn't get to see was, did Tyler have any sort of hiccup?
Tyler was in and out before Ryland had made it there. So we have Tyler here at Canyon, which can be an issue.
That's more than 10 seconds there, I'd say. I wonder if Tyler had not really rope-a-dope, but if he had been saving a match here. And now that he's at the bottom, he's getting back to work.
So getting word that Chris is back in 1st place at the Force 5 rig.
Oh my goodness.
Did she fend off a descent from Lindsay? So we're seeing Ryland get through Canyon.
Yeah, Lindsay in 2nd. 20 seconds down behind Chris.
Wow. So Ryland's in and out of Canyon. A bit of a gap there. We're getting double screen of Ryland.
Yeah, that's more like 25 seconds now.
So this is the double carry now. I believe these tubes are about 25 pounds. This is a 50-pound carry. Yesterday, it was negligible what this could do with just one. With 2, this is a real carry today. It's not extremely long, but it is a climb and a descent.
He's so aggressive at the start of this thing. He's going after it. I love it.
He did the same thing yesterday, was able to catch Atkins on this, and we'll see them pass by here. Tyler is running down, holding it in one arm. I like that strategy. If you can put them both on one side, that's, I think, what I would do.
And Tyler, it's a funny little skill to highlight, but he's a really good descender with a carry. You know, we don't see a ton of races decided by that, but now when you're, under a kilometer to the finish, this is a time where having something like that is a good skill to have in your back pocket.
So we have drop zone and Tyler Veerman getting on drop zone. This will be the first time he's seen this obstacle. It's a bit of a lâché. You can save time by leaping out and lâchéing through. And Tyler's not having any problem with this. Oh, man, he's a great athlete, very athletic there. This late into a race, we are about an hour 15 or so into this race, and he's still hour 25 into this race, and he is still very fresh and strong through these obstacles.
Yeah, he's one of those people that even if he's trashed on the run, his obstacle game is fresh and smooth.
And you got Ryland coming up. Doesn't look like he's closing this gap in any way. And maybe Ryland, as you mentioned, burnt his matches going up and down, trying to bring Tyler to a closer gap.
Faster through that, though.
Yeah.
By maybe a second or two. It's going to take more than that, though. got a 20 to 25 second gap. And look at this, Atkins coming in alone into the carry with purpose here still.
We only have a handful of obstacles left. This is Triumph, which is Dragon's Back. So this kid is more of a mentally challenging one that goes into a cargo net. Veerman's through it, no problem, aggressive through it. And then we get Littlefoot, and then it's that long running section into Urban Sky, Ricochet, and Cargo Climb. So it looks like Tyler Veerman is going to have to press it out. And if Ryland has any hope to catch him, he's going to have to do it in this run.
Yeah, and Veerman's so springy on this type of, we've seen Dragon's Back in the past. When you jump over and you land, there's this kind of like recombobulation time where you land and you have to gather your feet again. And he was landing and already pronging up over the next one. He just has that way of moving that's unique.
We have fourth place come down. We would assume this is going to be Ryan Kempson based off of the gaps that we've seen earlier. Confirmation from Emily on the field that is Ryan Kempson coming into fourth. And we got Josh following Ryland, who is currently in second place. Chasing Tyler Veerman, we have Littlefoot, a good stretch of running. Urban Sky, Ricochet coming up. Littlefoot is an obstacle.
Kempson's flying.
Here we go. Littlefoot did play a huge factor in yesterday's women's race. It's not a gimme. So, but it looks like he may already be through it. Atkins swinging through drop zone.
Ryan Kempson's in fourth, and it doesn't look like he really has a chance to catch Ryan Atkins. But Kempson was absolutely flying. He was the fastest coming out of Canyon into the carry out of the whole field, and I don't think it was really close. He is hauling.
It's what we love about Ryan Kempson. He doesn't need to be in any specific place. Right now, he could probably walk and still end up where he's going to end up, but that's not in his style. He's going to push it as hard as we can. We got word that Annie is still in third, but about a 3-minute gap between. Christopher Goloski is putting it on a show out there. If she is 20 seconds ahead of Lindsay and 3 minutes ahead of Annie,
it's going to be fascinating to find out what happened. Did Chris manage to stay on Lindsay that whole climb, make a move at the top, and get away from her? Or did Lindsay gap her a bit and then have to retry an obstacle?
So the long running stretch is over. We have Tyler on Urban Sky. Looks like he's going to get through it. No problem. We have one more real failable obstacle left called Ricochet.
He's never seen Ricochet in person, but he's an intelligent guy. He had to have been out there watching how people did this. And this is one where you can get hung up a little bit, but you're probably not going to fail if you have the type of grip strength that he has.
And this is the last swing through.
And that's it.
And he's got to go over a cargo net. And it looks like Tyler Veerman's going to accomplish a wire-to-wire victory from the first wall. Tyler Veerman was assertive, aggressive. He didn't have the biggest lead the entire time. He had to fight for it toward the end. And it looks like he is going to eclipse the cargo net.
He joins John Albin and Ryan Atkins in the pantheon of 15K OCR world champions. He is an elite company here.
This is definitely the biggest win of his career. We haven't had a signature win from him. He's been on the podium at some National Series races, but this is an outstanding win here for an athlete like Tyler Veerman, who has put in that work, who's pushed his chips into this. We haven't seen him too much on the OCR circuit this year, but he's really dedicated his craft to becoming a better runner, a better athlete, and it's paying off for him today.
And to do it in that style, he took the race by the throat from the beginning, and he just put everyone in debt. And this is the only man right here who had any answer for him at any point.
And Ryland Shadegg is going to come through in second. He did try to close the gap several places. Tyler just ran a great race strategically from the start, being aggressive with the fresh legs, having that payoff for him, skipping the 3K, had a plan, executed it. Ryland was able to hang around with him, coming in second. And this hit for both these athletes, inexperienced athletes in this venue, first, second. This looks like Logan. Looks like Logan coming up to the carry. Not also being pretty aggressive, looking pretty strong. Don't have eyes on the women's field yet. It looks like we have Faye and Abby near the top of one of the climbs. It's A-Bear there who finished 8th in the 3K yesterday. Looking strong. Very good obstacle athlete, so he's still kind of in that mix. And again, we had...
I don't think we can overstate how stunning this race is today.
This is the third or fourth time that we've seen Ryan Atkins really not be even involved in the late stages of a race this season. These athletes went out and took it right to. This is him. Look, we have Atkins on Ricochet. Looks like he's going to finish up in 3rd. But Bracken, elaborate a little bit more. What is so shocking about seeing this outcome?
Well, that's exactly it. Ryan Atkins is one of the 3 greatest obstacle racers of all time, and he didn't have an impact on the 3K or the 15K. Now that is just, it speaks to the power of what this sport has done with its forward progression, and it shows how really dangerous Rylan and Tyler really are, and VJ. It is just outstanding, the type of performance they put down, because it is so hard to do anything right on your first try. And they went out there and went 1-2 on a course they've never done before, on obstacles they've never even seen before.
Here's Logan coming in 5th at drop zone. So Logan's a smaller athlete in stature, and this is kind of a tall person obstacle. But he is a tremendous athlete. And you're right, Bracken. Atkins was beat by 4 different athletes today. It's not like a John Albin situation where there's just one mega athlete in front of him. Tyler Vierman, Rylan Shadag, VJ Jones, Ryan Kempson all bettered him at least once this weekend.
Yeah. And I still don't know if that means anything. I still think he might come out of this year with another world championship. But what it does mean for everyone else is that
his legs.
Yeah. What it means for everyone else is that we're in trouble with Rylan and Veerman. These two are really showing that they're not the future of the sport. They're the present.
They are right now. Absolutely. Here we got Chris on Faye's screen. We have an athlete in 6th place. Bracken, you got an idea who that was in 6th right there behind Logan? Not too far back.
No, someone in all dark.
Might
be our first international athlete here.
They're heading back down a descent. They were at... This might be... I don't know. I'm not exactly sure where the women are. There's 2 up and downs on the back half. If they've gone through skits or not yet, I'm not sure. Let's bring Josh back up. He's going to get a couple more finishers. We're going to see Ryan Kempson finishing here.
We just saw Chris Rogloski descending as Lindsay was finishing hiking up towards the top.
If this ends up being the result, I would say this is one of the more shocking weekends in terms of Lindsay's results as well. If it's 2 different athletes that can slide in front of her somehow. But we'll see how this technical section happens. What we can do on these last 2 descents. But Chris is really bringing it.
She is. And this is the type of weekend that opens the sport back up. I'm of the belief that part of the reason we don't see all of the top athletes at this competition is because they're ducking it. That they know, listen, Ryan and John win, Lindsay wins. That's just, the podium's not really open. The people who have done it are the ones who are going to keep doing it, and they're untouchable here. And when you see that there are no untouchables currently right now, I think that opens the floodgates for registrations for next year. People realizing, hey, I think there is a chance. If Tyler did it on his first try, if Rylan did it on his first try, if Chris Rogloski is coming up and being able to beat the greatest of all time, this is the type of course where so many things can happen that there are no givens.
So it looks like Chris and Lindsay are on their descent after Lagaff. So they have one more climb, I believe, or maybe 2 more climbs. Or
they said that Lagaff is still closed. They closed it later in the age group day yesterday, and it remains closed for today's race. I think due to backups.
I see. So they're going to have one more descent after the Lagaff, and with 2 more descents and 1 more ascent. So if Lindsay's going to make a move on the runs, it has to be very soon here. So let's get some, and they should be coming up close to that drop zone where we have Emily stationed. And we'll still stick with Josh to see if we can catch anybody else finishing. We should have Logan and the athlete who was in 6th, which was making that a race. So that should be competitive there. But there's a bit of gap between everyone and Logan. So we still have some time there.
Lindsay can and might still win this race, but her advantage ends the moment she enters the festival grounds. Her time to reestablish the lead is right now. Everything that happens between now and entering the festival grounds, because once she's down there, Chris is just longer than her and a little faster through obstacles. And I can't say that Lindsay has a clear advantage on that 300 to 400 meter run to close it out. So now is her last chance to burn whatever matches she has left and make sure that she, at the very least, enters that area with Chris.
It just wouldn't be enough time. She's going to have to make it on this climb and get back down. Because if I'm Lindsay, even though all the championships that I've won, still not feeling confident into that last obstacle gauntlet after what happened yesterday. It has to be in the back of her mind just a bit. So I would imagine she's going to want to push this climb and descent. But Chris is looking strong on the descent. So we'll see how Lindsay's able to kind of cover that gap or close it.
Yeah, they are in the exact opposite boat here right now, where Lindsay has a climb and a descent to win the race, and Chris has to maintain during this climb and descent so that she can then go win the race at the bottom. They have 2 different skill sets right now. However, their weaknesses and strengths aren't that far off from each other.
And we have word that Annie's still in 3rd after into the descent. Looks like on our face screen we have eyes on Annie Doobie heading in 3rd place, heading down to about to start her final ascent in this last portion of this race. We should see the athletes coming up just on the other side of her. Isn't that right, Bracken? This other side, like where the yellow tape splits. We should be seeing
right here.
The ascent back up. This is the final climb of this race.
I think this is Chris and Lindsay right here together. Nope. That's Lindsay, but that is not Chris ahead of her.
Latched
That
on
is
to
Samuel
fellow Canadian
ahead of her.
Faye,
At
has
this
Chris
point,
passed?
At this point, he's just rabbiting.
I mean, he's out there. He's big body too. Can be blocking. That's what makes Samuel so impressive. He is a large body out there, but it looks like Lindsay may have made a move somewhere. Faye, is Lindsay in 1st place right now? Okay, Lindsay did take over. And this is exactly what we talked about, Bracken. Lindsay had to make that move to create a little bit of space for herself into that final obstacle gauntlet where she did get caught and passed yesterday. Chris probably isn't as good as Ida on these obstacles, but she's not bad. Nothing coming up in this final gauntlet should slow her down too much, where we have seen Lindsay struggle even this weekend.
And look at this. Samuel, who was 8th yesterday in the 3K?
Yes.
Is now being pushed to the limit, trying to hold on to Lindsay up this climb. So the gap. What is this gap back to Chris? This is the all-important number right now, is how many seconds are going to slip away from Chris on this climb.
This may be a typical scene with Lindsay leading the race, but it's been an atypical race for her, where she's had to battle between 1st and 2nd and kind of working her way from 4th to 5th all the way to the finish. So as a true champion, she is going to put up a fight. We see Ryan Berzalara getting through Canyon here on your right.
Lindsay just picking her way through the men's field at this point. But Chris, how did the pass happen? Was it fitness? If so, she's probably not going to have any say on this. Did she make one mistake on an obstacle? If so, maybe she has another match she can use heading up this hill. Rylan was DQ'd for chalk on hands.
This is unofficial.
It was just Our finish line correspondent says that just announced Tyler Atkins Kempson is the podium. Ryland was DQ'd for using chalk. In the rule books, it's stated that any sort of mechanical aid outside of gloves is not allowed, and that includes dry chalk, liquid chalk, anything like that. That would be really, really demoralizing and unfortunate if true.
A race to come down something like that. On phase camera, we have Lindsay getting through the wrist roller situation. Now, this I don't know. This is where the sport ends up being polarized. What's within the bounds of the competition? What is the honor and integrity that people should be putting toward this? What are your thoughts on a complete disqualification for using chalk on a 15K obstacle course race?
Well, I agree with it if this is truly the case, because it's very clear in the rule book. I went back yesterday and reread it just to make sure. I read the athlete guide to see if there were any updates that I needed to know before the race, and it was really clearly spelled out. So in terms of the rules, yeah, I support that. In terms of what effect does it have on the race, in my mind, if you're willing to carry chalk and take the time to use it, like, good on you. I don't see a need for it in the rule book, but the fact that it's in there, I think that there's no issue with enforcing it.
Yes, the enforcement of it is fine. I guess, yeah, the rule itself.
Yeah, it's not for me, but I'm also not the officials. I'm not the rule setters. I don't think that in a course like this, chalk would make a crazy difference anyways. I can't say that it would be the difference between you getting through an obstacle and not getting through an obstacle. My guess is they don't want substances left on the obstacle after you've gone through.
It's probably like the old Spartan where if you were littering on the course or something like that. There's no real advantage, I don't think. It looks like Chris is having some fun with this wrist roller one and a little bit of a struggle. There was definitely a gap that was created between Lindsay and Chris on that last ascent. Josh should be getting the women's descent here, and then we have Emily down at Canyon and Drop Zone, where I'm guessing Faye is going to stay up around the wrist roller obstacle to see where the chase pack is coming through.
Yeah, I mean, if this holds up as we see Lindsay blast down this final descent, it's going to be the talk of the OCR world for the next few weeks. And that's unfortunate because it clouds what was a really spectacular weekend thus far. You never want controversy to be the leading story.
When I'm wet and sweaty, chalk doesn't even help. It turns more into like a slime. Yeah. I wouldn't even bring chalk on this course because I don't even think it would help at all.
I think the only obstacles chalk would help on at all would be for a lache. And even then, it wouldn't even be something I would reach for. So my assumption is it's less about the advantage it's giving you and more about you're leaving powder behind on the obstacle, which could negatively impact the next person through. My assumption is that's why the rule is there.
So let's go ahead and put a pin in this conversation. Like you said, it's going to be covered ad nauseum, and we don't exactly know what's happened there. But if you did miss it, we had word that Ryland Shadag had been disqualified for using chalk on the course, who crossed the line in second place, which would move Ryan Atkins into second and Ryan Kempson into third. As we're seeing Lindsay get through Skitch, battling with Samuel Hebert.
And Lindsay is a master at getting above 90 degrees with her elbows on intensive grip obstacles. She gets up where her hands are right under her chin, and she gets her weight centered completely around whatever the grip obstacle she's doing. And that, while it's not fast, it gives her such wiggle room for error on obstacles that it's just a really intelligent way of progressing through it if you're not going to go dead arm.
That seems to be the difference in how she approaches obstacles versus someone like Annie or Chris or Ida, where her lockout strength is something that she leans on, where the other women focus more on body control and swinging ability. So you can see even here, was locked out, which you do need some lockout strength to get through this to keep your body high, but she gets through Canyon pretty easy.
Yeah, with some of the other women, they attack on obstacles, and she's more of a survive and advance type obstacler. And obviously she's built a career around that, so it's working out just fine.
Yeah, no critiques here. So the double carry, and it looks like we have Annie on Faye's screen. This is at the wrist roller situation. So we still have Annie in third. We would assume Elricky is still in fourth, with Ida in fifth. Not much word on the chase pack from between fifth to 10th, but Annie Doobie is in third place still. We're seeing Lindsay Webster on Joshua's screen on the final heavy carries. This is double carries, should be about 50 pounds here that we're looking at Lindsay on this ascent and descent.
And just like yesterday, Ida did everything she had to do in order to get back into the race and capitalize. Lindsay just did everything correctly in order to come into this festival ground with the race in hand. Now she doesn't have to have an obstacle monster next to her, pushing her to mistakes or having to get outside her comfort zone and make mistakes herself to try to get into a race. She handled her business where she needed to, and now she gets to just finish off clean rather than having to risk anything.
She's opened up a considerable gap. The gap that we saw between Tyler and Rylan, they were on the carry together, and Lindsay looks like she's going to finish before Chris will even be starting that, which Lindsay has to be feeling great about this, going to some obstacles that she did fail yesterday and going to have some time to catch her breath, making sure she went through it. I'm sure she's done some mental homework about how to get through Littlefoot and getting some coaching there from her husband, Ryan Atkins, as we see on screen. But it looks pretty good for Lindsay Webster at this point.
Yeah, and I'm a little miffed because Chris came flying down into Canyon, screamed right across it, and accelerated hard into this carry. So it doesn't look like she's cracked. So either she lost her climbing legs or she ran into an issue that slowed her up on course, because it doesn't look like she's falling apart.
This, we have drop zone, which did take Lindsay quite a bit of time yesterday. Again, this is a big athlete obstacle. You see she's having to almost lâcher from monkey bar to monkey bar. So this could be a place where she could lose a tremendous amount of time and energy if she doesn't complete this. So let's see how she gets through this last lâcher.
And she needs to make this lâcher.
Oh, she caught it. Good.
Because when you spend that much time and energy getting up and down an obstacle, having to restart is utterly demoralizing, physically and mentally.
This is a place where we could really see an athlete get pumped and have a hard time. So she has one final lâcher here.
Yeah, she's got to finish this. You can't kick the bell here.
And she got it.
In the past, you could kick bells in the sport, and at OCR Worlds, they allowed it longer than at some other venues, I believe, but you cannot kick the bell anymore. So that lâcher was very important.
Very, very important. And she's coming up to Triumph and then Littlefoot, which Josh will be able to get a good angle to see if she's able to kind of get through that today, where yesterday she failed, I believe, twice to lose the lead and to lose the world championship at the 3K. So looking for some redemption for Lindsay coming up.
She's taking gloves off, shaking her arms out.
I bet she's feeling a little bit pumped.
Yeah, that was a long obstacle there.
And a lot of pulling with her biceps. And we'll see how Chris is able to move through this. You can see she's a bit longer in stature, is able just to go straight arm through and swing with straight arms, where Lindsay was almost doing a pull-up to get to each higher bar. Chris was through that much quicker.
She probably made up 15 seconds easy right there. But the problem is she had 60 to 70 seconds of gap.
I wonder if there's something. There's got to be a story of where that gap was formed, because that was almost out of nowhere. If it was just on one climb, that'd be pretty astounding.
Yeah, they were together and suddenly they weren't.
She didn't put anything on Faye's screen. Faye's still back. So we haven't seen fourth come through yet, even on with Faye. So we'll keep Josh's screen. So we have fourth coming up now on Faye.
Pretty familiar sight here. Ryan and Sunto alongside course, cheering Lindsay into a world championship.
Okay, here, let's go big screen for Littlefoot. This is where everything changed yesterday.
There's
for the
no
OCR
way
landscape.
Starts today. No way.
Just plenty of time. Yesterday she was engaged in a race and was probably at a very much higher level of work rate, and she's through no problem. She makes it through.
And now she knows.
And now she does know. I mean, at this point, it's formality. We have Urban Sky, which is failable. We have Ricochet, which is failable, but it's not nearly as difficult as many of the obstacles that we've already seen her get through at this point. And she has a bit of running here to get a reprieve in her arms. As you're seeing El Ricky on Faye's screen in 4th place at the wrist roller situation.
And what a time gap now back there. Who do we have sitting in 3rd? Annie?
It's Annie still.
Yeah.
So Annie's comfortably in 3rd.
Yeah, Annie is at the point now where she doesn't have to take a chance because she can't catch 2nd, and she really can't be caught unless something bad happens.
And her confidence in this final obstacle gauntlet, she had some struggles yesterday as well. So I think she's just going to want to get through them, much like Lindsay did through Littlefoot, just taking her time, making her way through it, because she has put herself in a great position.
And this is a great race because Chris had her on the ropes. And Chris is one of those scary athletes where, like, let's say someone else is the one that keeps getting back up to Lindsay. Lindsay could be like, yeah, but I know what your ceiling is. I know you're playing your cards. You don't know what cards Chris is holding. Each week she shows up with more cards in her deck. We don't really know what her ceiling is. And so she's a frightening athlete to have being the one pushing you at a world championship. Because, she might just pop something any day here. So for her to weather that storm, this is what champions are made of.
Chris does seem to do something each week that is surprising to us. So we could be watching another breakthrough every single race. As Lindsay seems to be getting through Urban Sky. No issue. Got word that Ida is in 5th place at the top of that descent. Top of that final ascent here. Let's go full screen with Ricochet as Lindsay approaches. Looks like she's taking her time.
Yeah, we can't take anything for granted. Your grip can leave at any moment. If she's pumped out, she's pumped out. We don't assume she's going to have any issue here, but at the same time, there's something like 9 or 10 grabs you have to make here. And that's a big ask when your hands are gone. But I just don't think her hands are gone.
Doesn't seem like it. When she does end up having some fatigue, we'll see her chicken wing. She does that lockout strength. She's still swinging and gets through it. Big smile heading into the cargo. This has to feel great for Lindsay Webster after yesterday. The first race that I think we've seen her be beaten in since Tahoe 2019, I think. So nothing. Her mental game is still super strong. We're going to see her do these final flips and cross that line as your 2022 15K OCR World Champion.
We're watching the best to ever do it, and this is retirement. She retired last year. This is part-time athlete Lindsay Webster winning another world championship.
It's not bad. We got the puppy out there too. Hopefully that's not another DQ situation.
That's right. Don't let him pull you to the finish, Lindsay.
What do those rules say? Read the book.
They didn't mention support animals.
And there we see warm embrace of Samuel Hebert, who was probably pretty helpful at the end of that race for her to pull her along.
What a performance. She weathered more than one storm out there. And we just can't wait to find out what was that definitive move made. How did she fabricate that type of gap out of thin air?
Looks like we'll have Chris not far behind, coming in 2nd. Double podium weekend for Chris Rogloski. This is a massive result for her. Really awesome performance. Very assertive from the start. Never gave up. In true fashion, she gave Lindsay as much of a battle as we've seen. We rarely see Lindsay lose a lead. We'll see her not take a lead from the start, but rarely does she get passed in the middle of a race. And Chris was not afraid today and really put herself in position to win this race. Not to get 2nd, not to get 3rd, but to win.
I think in the history of Lindsay's career, we've seen like 4 or 5 women give her fits on course. And in the last 3 years, we've seen 1. Pretty much just Nicole. So to give her some problems on an OCR World Championship 15K course is kind of like winning worlds in its own right. You're joining elite company. There are as many people who have won a world championship as there are people who have given her trouble at a world championship. So Chris joins elite company here just by simply being there with 2K to go.
And some, like you mentioned, Chris being scary, there's always new things evolving, and she's not going to fail obstacles. If it's just a fitness equation for her and an experience level that is going to put her on that level of Lindsay, she's going to get there. Where on the other side, on Emma Cook Clark, there's always just that piece of her that we know is not shored up yet on her obstacle game. Chris doesn't have that hole, and as much as confidence as she can come in with, more fitness, more experience, she is that next athlete in line, it's seeming like.
And those two, if you just got those two together for a winter of training, the OCR world's in trouble next year. You got Emma with grip, and you've got Chris with even higher end engine. That would be a scary sport.
Mm-hmm. We don't want to discard what Annie Doobie has done this year with several injuries along the line. Sitting in a healthy third place here, was leading the 3K yesterday and finishing third at the North American Championships as well. So the sport on both ends of the men and women's field is in good hands.
Well, and I think Annie is arriving at the right time. She's reminding me of that high school kid who's racing himself or herself into fitness. Get out in the lead each time, knowing that I'm coming off injury or whatever. I didn't have a great summer and I'm going to race myself back into shape. She's doing that. She's inserting herself into every race, and she's making it a little farther each time. Mm-hmm. Championship season here. She's making her podiums. We have more world championships looming. I think she's arriving at the exact right time.
And this is her first season while being able to train at altitude. Her and Chris both living in Colorado now, so I mean, no one has an advantage there. But the more time you can spend, the more time Annie can work on being healthy and getting experience at this style of race. That's another thing too. Chris had done the entire Savage Series, won the Savage Series outright, and Annie hasn't done anything technical with her obstacle game, and that was probably a point that did slow her down even today, I would imagine, when the stories of this race do unfold.
Yeah, to take top 3 in a world championship means that you have beaten the entire field -2. And that's really like reductionist to say, but that's a point worth making, is that she went out there and beat everyone else outside of 2 people who already have world championships under their belt. So this is a really strong showing for someone who probably had the worst buildup towards this in the last calendar year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it was probably not necessarily the main focus in her race season. I'm trying to see if we can find actual results here. I'll work on that. We see Annie to get through Urban Sky. Again, we're looking at third place in the women's 15K, Annie Doobie. Behind Lindsay Webster and Chris Rogloski for this final podium position. She's through Urban Sky, has Ricochet to get through, and then just the cargo. But it looks like Annie's going to hold on for her first OCR World Championship podium.
What a performance.
Absolutely.
And with Lindsay, you know what you're getting. She's probably seen her ceiling. I mean, she's retired, so she's probably already seen her ceiling. Chris and Annie are in a fantastic spot where they don't quite know yet. Chris hasn't put together a training plan yet. She hasn't put together a race schedule that's progressive in nature yet. She's just living enthusiastically outside in nature. She's hiking 14ers and running them each weekend. She's doing lots of crazy stuff. Annie hasn't done obstacle practice yet. She has great grip, but like you said, she's not doing technical obstacle practice, and she had reconstructive elbow surgery this year. So these two both have a really high ceiling still in this sport compared to what they're hitting right now. I don't think we've seen what they're capable of.
I agree, which just makes it that much more exciting. If we get a full season next year of them setting their sights on being top athlete at this point, Chris doesn't seem like an athlete who does have issues with her confidence and wants to go out and push herself as much as possible. But now she sees that the possibilities of her being the best in the world are right there. And Annie's in the same boat. Last year, after coming second place in Abu Dhabi and now third place here at OCR World Championships, and not getting creamed, not just being the chase pack.
I mean, all three have great takeaways here. Lindsay gets to realize, even when this isn't my full-time focus, because she's been doing a lot of sky running and other things like that, I can still win world championships. Chris realizes, even with zero specific focus, I can go out here and contend for a world title. And Annie gets to look and say, listen, 3 months ago, I was nervous to enter an OCR race because I had to test my arm out. And now here I am going through the most physically grip and arm demanding course in North America. And I was third in the world here. They all have really positive takeaways from this race.
So we have our podium, barring any changes that we saw on the men's side of things, but it looks like we have Lindsey Webster as your 2022 15K champion, Chris Rogloski, your silver finisher, and Annie Doobie rounding out the podium in third place for the 15K. We'll stick around and we'll see what the top 5 are, but I found the results, some interesting results from 5 to 10 that we'll be able to kind of go over. In particular, in fourth place, Manuel Defoe, who was a Swiss athlete, and Luca Pisani, who we did mention, who has some fans listening, in fifth place. And sixth place, Bracken, Alvaro Vasquez.
Alvaro Vasquez in sixth. Good for him. That's a plan coming together there. Going to Killington 2 weeks ago, taking his lumps, being ready now.
And not racing from the front, racing within himself, being able to manage what his energy needs to be on a mountain course, because we see him on flat courses being able to put himself in this very uncomfortable position really early and maintain. But to manage your effort over the course of a 15K on the mountains is a completely different ball game. And it looks like he put one together today. So congratulations to Alvaro.
Wow. Can you get those results up? Is that possible yet? Or is this still pending?
That's possible. I mean, I probably is still pending, but they're up. So I'll pull them up right now, and we'll do a multi-screen just to catch in, because I don't know. There was quite a bit. I would like to see. Oh, I did the wrong thing. That was foolish of me.
Fourth woman coming in. Oh, and Ida.
Have we not seen Ulrich? She made a pass on Ulrich somewhere on the course here, so it looks like Ida coming in fourth, very strong. And this is the final 2 obstacles we're going to see her get through Urban Sky. I just have these ready to go. Right now, let's just go with Ida. Oh, shoot, I'm sorry.
Ida, again, finding a way to get up through the field as it goes on.
And this has to be mentally, this must have been a very challenging race, coming off of what has to be a lifetime high as an athlete, to beat Lindsey Webster, something that athletes just don't do. And then to be in that 5th, 6th, 7th place position to continue to still push forward, to finish in 4th, to make moves later. Very strong-willed, very great performance here for a 4th place finish for her.
Yeah, and she just doesn't seem to mess up. She doesn't make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And that's tough to race against, because everyone around her knows, all right, I have to take advantage on all of my strengths, because she is not going to give me anywhere to hide when it's her turn. And this final 1,000 or 2,000 meters here, it was her turn again, moving from potentially 6th up to 4th. It's just a great closeout. Does she miss the podium? Yeah. I mean, did someone maybe have substance on their hands and they'll get DQ'd? We don't know. Maybe that's still coming up. But to come out with a win in a 4th place in the 15K is clearly not her bread and butter. That's a fantastic, fantastic weekend of racing for this woman. And she's not done. She's part of the team race tomorrow.
She seems happy. You would imagine this is a great result for her. Not necessarily in that top pack. Worked her way up through. Has to be happy with this type of result.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's take this time. We'll pull up the results here on the men's side. So Tyler Veerman with once you take out Ryland, almost a 3-minute victory.
Yeah, that is really, really interesting and unfortunate for Ryland to see. And really, Ryan Atkins and Ryan Kempson, they're the type of guys who don't want his spot. They don't want to take it that way. They'll certainly take the check. That they're going to cash that check either way. But that's not the way they want to be up there. But look at how international it got. Yesterday, we saw North American dominance for the most part, outside of 1, 2, maybe 3 athletes in the 3K. But now here we go. Switzerland 4, Switzerland 5, Nicaragua 6, Netherlands 7, Ecuador 8, Canada 10. And then we've got whatever that picture at the bottom is. But I can't see where.
We got Ryan Brizola, Jesse Ryan,
It's just fantastic.
Belarus. Absolutely. This name, Noah Busher. Are you familiar with this name?
See that monster runner?
He's 18 years old.
Oh, he's the 18-year-old.
Is he who was in who did so well at Indian Mud Run?
Yeah. Wow.
That's really good. That's something that is even more encouraging. Seeing some young athletes like finish in a top 10 there.
Look at Switzerland though, going 4-5 with Manuel Defoe and Luca Pisani. That is such an impressive performance. And unfortunately, Manuel, Luca, Alvaro, Yessa, Fernando, Noah, we didn't get to see any of you on camera today because the top 4 were just so dominant and out front. But this was a really impressive finish. That 4 through 10 there, really impressive.
Absolutely. Let me get some more familiar names. Jesse Bruce in 10th, Brian Brizola in 11th. An athlete from Belarus, athlete from Norway, Christoph Aldofsson. James Burton, the first athlete from the UK. Austin Azar, we got in 15th. Jordan McDougall, we didn't get to see any of. Ethan Brown, who we saw at the start line. And Sam Osborne, another American athlete, rounding out that top 20.
Wow.
I don't see Aaron Newell.
There's some shock in there.
I don't see an Aaron Newell here.
I don't either.
Any other names that we're omitting who we haven't seen cross?
Let's check on non-complete.
Oh.
Non-completion.
Yeah. Let me pull that up. Let me just get the finisher screen up here. See if they have any more women coming through. Then I can switch over to the women's results. Let's look at the 15K non-complete. I don't even know if they would be finished at this point yet. Because
looks like we have Beckstrom through.
Oh, good. Good. So he's right in that mix. 15K pro non-complete. This is just people who are on the course still. That's not correct.
That's an international podium right there. Sweden, US, Canada, Denmark.
Hold on. Female results are not quite there yet, so
okay.
We'll hold off on sharing.
Were there any big names in the men non-complete list?
That didn't seem to be quite updated either. It's just
okay.
It's the non-complete are just people who are just still on the course, it looks like. Barefoot Bogey is still out there.
Barefoot Bogey still going.
Yeah, we're not quite sure. We can't really fill in this top 10 yet on the women's side of things. That's right. We didn't see Logan's name. Someone asked, what about Logan? And we did not see. So this took a minute yesterday for the athletes to fill in. We saw that at the top of the women's race where I don't think Chris or Annie were in the initial results here. So we are missing some names. So we'll have to keep refreshing to see what happens. We're starting to see more and more names kind of punch in here as people are getting shifted down. So these are very unofficial at this point, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of stories with the chalk situation with Rylan, who's going to have to forfeit his second place finish, unfortunately. So let's see what we got, if anybody finishing through. Looks like we've lost all of our cameras. We can do another quick recap on the results. We don't quite have everything in yet, but this is our preliminary results on the men's side. Tyler Veerman winning their race, Ryan Atkins in second, Ryan Kempson in third, a pair of Swiss athletes, Manuel Defoe and Luca Pazzini, and Alvaro Vasquez in 4, 5, 6. We're still waiting on Logan Broadbent where we'd see him because he was in a clear fifth. So we don't have word on him yet. So a really strong result here. Bracken, you want to come back up on camera? We lost our cameras on the field, so let's kind of recap this thing and close it down.
This weekend is not disappointing. It is living up to the hype of a world championship. And today we got to see that world representation in the top 10. So that's exciting. Yesterday I left thinking, I wonder if some of the international athletes are going to feel like it's just getting overseas is tough. Racing on different soil is tough. Time zones is tough. Different obstacles is tough. But they showed up today.
And that is great to see because we see that over and over in obstacle racing where there is this discrepancy between the athletes who don't have to travel and who can stay on their home course. We saw that a little bit at the top of the field. The North American athletes seem to have done better at the highest end, but it was great to see the athletes fill in that top 10 internationally because there are some great young athletes who need that type of recognition to fill in the places of the John Albans of the past there because it looks like the torch may be being passed here domestically and also internationally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the new wave. I mean, the old names are still there, but this is the new wave. When you have more new people on the podium than old, it's official. Like the sport has evolved. So we saw some shots of Adrian on screen. This is the man that's been behind this for years. I want to thank him for this incredible performance, for this incredible event that he continues to put on through not the easiest of economic times. I want to thank all the international athletes for making their way back over here. Last year, we didn't get to see as many of you. And all the athletes are putting on just a show this weekend.
It truly was an exciting race on both ends of things. Two races that played out pretty early and had a couple of really high-end athletes finish things out with VJ Jones and Ryan Kempson in an absolute battle for the ages yesterday, and VJ coming away with his second 3K World Championship. And today, Tyler Veerman on a course that he's never seen, in a format that he's never seen, be aggressive, had a plan, punched everybody in the mouth, and no one could really respond. Only Rylan Shadag was able to put himself in that mix for a little bit of that race. So really, really surprising outcome on the 15K for Tyler Veerman. As it finished, it didn't seem to me to be that outside of the realm of possibilities, but in a historical context, this is a massive accomplishment for Tyler.
Yeah, and then Ida on the female side, punching her ticket for a world title, getting that recognition she deserves. She's now the Euro champ and the world champ. Clearly just the best obstacle racer in the world right now. Lindsay showing she's still the one. Even in retirement, there's no better OCR athlete on the scene. And then you've got the new blood. You had some good Europeans, but Chris Rogloski putting a scare in Lindsay for a long time. These are the things that get us excited for this sport.
Because of the domination that Lindsay's had over the past 2 years or so, it's almost a foregone conclusion that she is going to run away with this race. Didn't seem to be the case. Held on to the very end of this race where it wasn't even clear that that was the case. A lot of times Lindsay has these races in her hands and can just make the move when she needs to. Wasn't like that today. So very exciting on both ends for the 15K.
Team race tomorrow. A lot of these athletes are teaming up tomorrow. And that's where this gets really fun is you have people who are going to be all on the same team. So you've got Leon going with Ida on a team. I believe Rylan and Rogloski are on the same team. You have a bunch of people teaming up to try to take down. The U.S. is going to go against the Canadians. They team up according to country, not according to who they represent brand-wise or who their buddies are necessarily. It's country versus country, and that always allows people to lay it on the line a little harder.
So that is the coverage here by Obstacle Race Media, brought to you by VJ. Make sure you follow Obstacle Race Media on Instagram to get all of the official results. We're still waiting on some of that to come in. I'm going to go ahead and paste this link into the chat in case anybody wants to follow along with the results as they get updated. We're still waiting on the women to see who fills in that top 10, and we're missing out on some of the men. So it seems to be a pretty incomplete list. But this was an absolute blast, a historical weekend of racing. Bracken, thank you so much for joining me today. And any last words to add here?
Nah, just thank you, OCR community. Everyone watching today, everyone tuning in, all the companies and sponsors out there making this possible. This is the type of weekend that makes me feel positive about the future of our sport. So let's keep it rolling.
And with that, we're signing off.